Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is with a great pleasure that I am here today to participate in the Smart India Hackathon. On behalf of Persistent Systems Limited, let me warmly welcome you all here today. This training mainly talks about basics of core Java, and yes, definitely we'll have some hands-on as well. So let's get started, guys. So our main objective today is to have why should we learn Java, we'll understand what is an history of Java, we'll understand the importance of Java to the internet, the Java platforms and the libraries, we'll get to know the compilation and execution of Java programs, we'll understand features of Java, we'll know the different versions of Java, and we'll definitely have a hands-on on Java program. So we'll definitely write a first hello world program, and we'll try the same thing with the Eclipse as well. Okay, and the basic configurations which are required. So this is not about the features, so we'll be covering the basic core Java as such. So we can have 1.5 and 1.6, 1.7 and 1.8. okay, and the Eclipse which we are going to work is the Eclipse Luna. Okay, so first we should understand why Java, because we already have many other programming languages, and so let's understand the difference between the programming language, the other programming language, and the Java. So to start with Java, so Java is a very simple language, as we say. So as you can see here, they say that Java is simple language. How does it simple, and why they are saying it is simple? So if you already know C and C++, we can easily upgrade on Java, because the syntax which we have in Java are very similar to the C and C++. That's why we're calling it as a simple. Okay, so not only that, they have removed the number of complex scenarios which we had before in C and C++, like multiple inheritance, which used to create an ambiguity, right? So we don't have any ambiguity in case of Java. So they have completely removed this multiple inheritance concept in Java. Yeah, along with that, we don't have a concept of structures, we don't have a concept of unions. So as per my knowledge, they are not required in Java as such, because we can do everything in a class, right? Okay, so we are going to definitely see how we can create a class and how we can implement all of those features which we had in C and C++. We'll deploy that in Java as well. Yeah. Okay, they are saying Java is object oriented. Yes, we already know that we have many other concepts to start with the programming language. That is, we have a procedural language, we have a object oriented language, and one of that is object oriented language. Yes, and definitely this is the one of the biggest feature which we have in programming languages, right? Okay, so we'll definitely gonna have a deep dive into this object oriented programming language. Yes, so we'll talk about this as well. They say that Java is multi-threaded. Java is multi-threaded means it can support the multi-threading environment. That means what? We can create a distributed applications. We can have a web-based applications in which the number of users can access the same application at the one go or in a one time. So even the threading support is also there for the Java applications. Yeah, because we have a rich API here. That is the thread class or a interface called as an runnable interface. These are already provided by the Java. Yeah, Java is distributed. They are saying Java is distributed. So distributed means, we already know the meaning of distributed, right? Distributed means what? A single application divided into the multiple users to complete the functionality of that application, right? Yes, Java is robust. Why we are saying it is robust? Robust means it can easily come over the problems which can occur at the runtime. Yes, so we can handle the exceptions at runtime. So this is basically about exceptions. When I say robust, this is basically about exceptions, right? So it can handle the exceptions very quickly, very easily, because again we have the rich API for handling the exceptions. That's why we are calling Java as a robust language. We are saying Java as a portable as well. Why we are calling portable as? Because once we write Java, that can be deployed onto any of the machine. Yes, so Java is mainly compile once and run many times. So once I write a code in Java, that can be deployed or run on any of the machine, on any of the platform. That's why we are calling it as portable. Yes, we are saying Java is secure. So believe me, Java has actually come into existence to support the internet, to support the www, right? So if you're gonna deploy your application on internet, or if you're gonna deploy your application on World Wide Web, the application must be secure, very secure, right? To make it secure, they have provided us something called as an bytecode and something called as an bytecode verifier, and this is the component and this is the part of the JVM. Yes, we'll not go into that much deep, but we have the but they have deployed many of the algorithms to achieve the best security. Yeah. Okay. We are saying Java is interpreted. Yes, interpreted means what? So if Java provides the interpreter, so that means if the software provides the interpreter itself, that means your application will be more faster, right? So your application will be directly converted into the machine language. That's what the interpreter stands for, right? So if I have a machine code ready with me, I can directly run that on any operating system, and any operating system can understand that specific machine language, right? So your application by default becomes faster. So that time will be saved here. Okay, so these are the some basic features of Java we have seen. So definitely we are working with Java to play games, to store data, to process words, to easily create the applications, to create the games, to create the web based applications, to create the desktop based applications. Yes. Okay. We know why should we learn Java. We know the some features of Java. Let's understand how this Java is evolved and history of Java. Yes. So as we know, Java is actually conceived by James Gosling and Patrick Naughton and his team in 1991. Yes. And the basic idea behind creating Java is that they wanted something that which can run on any machine, because they knew that in future we need some we're going to have number of operating systems, and if we are going to have number of operating systems, then all of those operating system should run any application. That means what? We need anything on the go. So if you need anything on the go, that means any application can be deployed on any of the machine, and your application should be supported for all of the platforms, in short, right? So we need one application to be deployed on any machine, anywhere, anytime. So to create a anywhere, anytime environment, what we need is Java. Okay, so that was the basic idea behind creating a Java. So they wanted some language which is platform independent. So that is the biggest feature of Java. So we're going to talk about platform independence as well. Yes, and basically at the start they named this language as Oak, that is OAK. Yeah, as such, no any technical reason behind this giving Oak name. So the campus was surrounded, the campus where they used to develop this Java applications or a Java language, that was surrounded by oak trees. So that's why they just named it as an Oak. As such, there is no any technical reason behind this. But later on, when they wanted to register it, when they wanted to make it ISO registered, when they wanted to make it licensed, it is a open source, yes, but when they wanted to register it ISO registered, that time they come to know that Oak already, this name is already been given by some other maybe for some other programming languages. So they need to rename this Oak, and they named it as in Java in 1995. So officially Java is become officially it has given a name as in Java in 1995. Yeah. Okay. And why Java again? Again, there is no any technical reason. Java is a name of coffee actually. So they used to consume a very famous coffee called as in Java. So they named after it. Yeah. And even if you see a logo of Java, that is a cup of coffee, right? This is a short history of Java. Okay, we say that Java is important for the internet, right? As we are saying, Java is important for internet. Why? Because Java provides a best security. Along with that, a biggest feature of Java is portability. Java provides a portability. Portability means what? Once I run my application, or once I deploy, or once I create my application on any of the machine, that can be deployed on any of the platforms as well, right? So that means this is compile once or write once, run many times, right? That's why we are saying Java is portable. That's why we can run our application, we can run our Java application on any of the platform, on any of the client machines as well. Let's understand what all platforms we have. So basically these are the flavors of Java which we can say. So Java is mainly divided into the three parts, that is Java to Standard Edition, Java to Enterprise Edition, and Java to Micro Edition. So what we are studying currently is core Java, and that is nothing but the Java to Standard Edition. So we should say J2SE, which we can also call as an J2SE. And the second part which we have, or the advanced version which we have, is a J2EE. It is also called as Java to Enterprise Edition, right? Along with that, we can also have a J2ME, which stands for Java to Micro Edition. So this Micro Edition is basically for the mobiles. This is basically for the embedded devices. So if you see, Java to Standard Edition is the core Java, is the basic Java. By studying this J2SE, we can create a desktop based applications, standalone applications, and maybe the console based applications, right? But unless and until we don't have knowledge of this basic Java, we cannot study this J2EE, or we cannot go for the J2ME as well. Yeah, and this J2EE stands for web based applications most of the time, distributed applications. Yes. And if I talk about this J2ME, this is, as I spoke, this is for mobiles, this is for the embedded devices. Nowadays a very famous operating system, as we all know, is Android. Yes, so that again comes under the Micro Edition. So these are the main three flavors of Java. Out of that, what we are going to study is J2SE. Okay, let's talk about execution and let's talk about bytecode. We are saying Java is platform independent. This is one of the biggest feature of Java, right? And I'm saying, and we are saying, this is because of the bytecode, right? So let's understand what do you mean by this bytecode, right? So if I talk about bytecode, or if I talk about any machine is nothing but a hardware, right? At the end, it is nothing but the hardware. And when I say it is a hardware, it doesn't understand anything. At the bottom, at the last, the basic layer is a hardware. So hardware doesn't understand anything. It just knows zeros and ones. It just knows bytecodes. So the basic idea is, if I convert my application, if I convert my any application or any language into the bytecodes, that can be deployed on any of the platform. Yes, and the same thing they are doing here. So we have a .java, that is a programming language Java file, and after compilation what we are getting is a .class file. If you observe here, when we write a code, we'll have a .java file, yeah, and we'll compile it by the Java compiler. As you can see, we have a Java C there. So that compiler will convert our .java file into a .class file. So that .class file is nothing but the bytecode file. Okay, and yes, this bytecode file is a platform independent file now. So, and that's why we are saying Java is platform independent. So compiled file is platform independent, not the .java file, right? So if you observe here, that .class file can be deployed on Windows, can be deployed on Linux, and can be deployed on Mac or maybe on other operating systems as well. But if you see here, the JVM which we are using, we have not spoke about this JVM, but as of now, just understand that JVM is nothing but one software installed on your operating system to run your Java codes. Yeah, so to basically to listen to the songs, what we need, is a player, media player, right? So the same way to run Java, what we need is a JVM. So JVM is just a software which is installed on your operating system, right, which understand these dot class files or a bytecode files. Okay, so if you see, JVMs are platform dependent. The software which we have are the platform dependent. That means what? Definitely the exe file will not run on Mac, right? The Windows, the media player file will, the same execution file will not run on Mac OS, right? So the same way the JVM which is in exe format, that will not run on Linux, that will not execute on Mac. So JVM is platform dependent, and the compiled file, the dot class file, is platform independent. Understand this? Yeah, remember this. JVM is platform dependent, and the dot class files, the bytecode files, are platform independent. Let's proceed ahead. Okay, so as we write our code, we get a source code. We call it as the source code or a .java file, right? The extension should be a .java file, not the txt or not the doc, not none of the other. So we should store our application as in .java, and once we compile, what we get is a bytecode. Remember this, what we get is a bytecode or a compiled file. Okay, and to hand over it to the operating system, we hand over our bytecode to the operating system. What we need is a JVM in between, and JVM comes with the interpreter, right? So we don't so now we don't need interpreter, right? We don't need to install it explicitly. We have a inbuilt interpreter with a JVM. So this will definitely save a lot of time. Okay, so execution time will be much lesser in case of Java than the other programming language, right? So if you observe the box, that blue box which we have on the upper side, so it says that source code, if it is compiled, will get a bytecode, right? And that bytecode is a platform independent, and that bytecode can be executed on different machines on number of operating systems, right? And what we need to execute that bytecode is a JVM, simple. And JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. So JVM comes along with this interpreter. Okay, so definitely, so interpreter is for to reduce the time, so that converts your complete bytecode or the sentences into the statements, or we can call it as an instructions, right? So in short, it will convert our language, it will convert our complete file into the machine code. That's it. And what at the end we'll get is executable code. Okay. Okay. So if you see, we have two environments here. One is compile time environment and the other is runtime environment. So what do you mean by compile time environment? Compile time environment means a Java file, once it is compiled, we'll get a dot class file, right? For that, what we need is a Java compiler, and this environment is a compile time environment, right? So if you observe a.java, once it is compiled by Java compiler, we'll get a.class. Similarly, we have a b.java, once it is compiled, we'll get a b.class. We have a c.java, once we compile this, what we get is a c.class, right? So basically this is the compile time environment. Once we compile, we'll get a dot class files, that is a bytecode files. Remember this. Okay. Then what we have is a Java virtual machine, that is a runtime environment, right? So a.class, now what we need is a dot class files, not the .java files. So Java virtual machine looks for a dot class file. Java virtual machine JVM looks for the dot class files, not for the .java files. Okay. So we hand over, or Java virtual machine will load the dot class files. That can be the dot class files created by you, or the dot class files that are given by the Java itself. Yeah, what we call it as an API or a libraries. Yes. Once we hand over that to the Java virtual machine will convert that complete dot class file into the machine code. It will definitely interpret it, it will process on it, and it will give the program, it will hand over that specific dot class file into the machine code, so that operating system can easily understand that. Yes, and which stands for runtime environment. So the components which comes under this are called as an Java runtime environment. So the components, I mean to say, the dot class file comes while execution of program, the Java virtual machine comes while executing of program. So interpreter even comes when we execute the program, and the components which comes under this, we call them as an JRE. JRE stands for Java runtime environment. JRE stands for Java runtime environment. So this is basically the components which comes while running your application, right? So while running my application, this class file comes, even the Java virtual machine comes under this, the interpreter comes under this, the bytecode verifier comes under this, the class loader comes under this. We have many other components of the Java virtual machine. We are not going in that detail, but for now just understand that the components which comes or which which comes under while executing your program, those are nothing but that is nothing but the Java runtime environment, right? Okay, let's proceed ahead. Okay, so now we have a basic idea about this, how to execute. So we have a basic idea about Java, the features of Java, what is Java, why Java. Now let's have some hands-on, and let's have a environmental setup. We'll execute our first program on a command line, yeah, and we'll see how to set up the environments for this, and we'll run the same program on Eclipse IDE as well. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. So we'll see how to execute the same program on IDE as well. Yeah. So let's see how to run a first program. So what we need for this is a JDK to be installed on our machine. So I'll just show you on my machine a JDK is installed. If I go into the program files, what I have is a Java. So if you see, I have many versions of Java. For now we can even 1.5 version is fine for us, 1.5, 1.6, yeah, the latest one is 1.8. So that should be installed on your machine. So we need a JDK. So basically if you see, we have three terms, that is JDK, JRE and JVM. JDK stands for Java Development Kit, and this is nothing but a complete setup, a compose box which we are going to download from internet. So we need a JDK to for the development, for the running as well. So JDK is for development as well as for running, right? JRE is just a runtime environment. For running our application, we just need a JRE. For development, we need a JDK. So for development, we need a JDK, and to run, we need a JDK, right? And for only running, we need a JRE. Okay. And JVM is a software, or JVM is a machine which executes our code. Yeah. So I have my JDK installed on my machine here on program files. So what I'll do, I'll just write my first program. So I'll write first program on Notepad by using Notepad. You can use any editor if you want. For now we are using Notepad. Okay, so this all starts with a class. I'll write down a class called as an, say, hello world. Yeah, open close curly braces. We are going to talk about the standards which we need for this, right? So if you observe, class is in lowercase because this is a keyword. We are going to talk about this, don't worry. Then the name which we have provided here is in some other, again some of the standards, right? So if you observe, H is in capitals and that W is in again capital, others are in the lower cases, right? So we'll talk about those standards, and everything comes under a class. Even a main comes under a class in case of Java. If you know, in case of C and C++, we write main outside the class. So let's see how we can start with this. So I'll write down a public static void main. This public static void main is a start of your application, right? Or we mainly call it as a main or a int main. and we have a parameter for this main, that is string parameter, that is an command line arguments. We'll talk about that, don't worry as of now, right? So just observe, we are writing public static void and main. So main is a method, or it is a starting point of your application, right? Same like a void main, int main in case of C++. Okay, so everything starts with this public static void main, and the syntax is same. It is the syntax should be same. Okay, so we are gonna print hello world on console, right? To print anything on console, what we use is system dot out dot println. Yes, and as we already know, all of the statements end with the semicolon, right? So, and whatever I put inside the double quotes will be printed on a console. So, I am saying hello Java as of now. Yeah, so if you observe here, system is in capitals, so S of this system is in capitals, dot out is in lower cases, dot println is in again lower cases. So this is a method present in a system class, right? So present in a so this is the object. So definitely we'll talk about this once we understand some of the keywords. That is, we need to understand a static keyword for this, we need to understand the encapsulation, and we need to understand abstraction for this. So we're gonna talk about that, so don't worry, this is just a simple program as of now. So we are just looking into the syntax of Java, how we can execute it, how we can set up the environment for this. Yeah, so we are just having an overview as of now. Yeah, and yes, we should always follow a tree structure, that is, we should always have a spaces, a new lines wherever needed, right? As per as possible, try to give the comments. So we give a comments by using double slash in case of Java, right? And we can say this class is created for printing hello, right? So we can give a definition, or we can define this class, we can give a description of this class. So this is for printing hello. Definitely you can add the comments for each and every statements. So whenever you have a specific statements or some new statements or some new methods, we can give the we can definitely add up these comments, something like this. Okay, so once you are done with that, so this is our basic program. So this is our basic application to just print a hello Java on console. We need to save this. So I'll go into file, I'll say save as. For now I'll save these in some drive, say in G drive. I'll create a new folder, say Java demo. So if you observe, I have one folder called as in Java demo in G drive. You can create on any drive if you want. I'll save this file as that of the class name. This is important again. Yeah, if you see my class name, the Java class name is hello world. So you need to save this file with the same name, hello world dot Java. The best practice is to put them inside double quotes. Yeah, so follow these best practices, put it inside double quotes, but look for the case sensitivity as well. So class name and the file name is same. Yeah, this is just these are the best practices which we are talking about. Okay, and we are saving it inside G drive, that is inside Java demo. Yeah, I'll save this file. If I close, if I go to G drive, inside Java demo we have created folder called as in Java demo. Can you see? So under this we have hello world, and the extension and the type of this file is Java file. Yes, if you open this, the same program which we have recently written. I'll just open this with a notepad. Yeah, the same program we have here. Okay, now let's see, we are done with the writing of our program, right? So we have a source code here, so we need to execute this source code, right? So what we have is a compilation environment and the runtime environment. So first we need to use a compiler to compile this and to get the dot class file, yes, or a bytecode file, yeah, and we'll hand over that bytecode file to a JVM so that it will execute, right. So let's see how to compile and how to execute our application. I'll go to start, I'll open command prompt cmd, and from command prompt what I'll do is I'll first look for a Java path. I'll first look for whether Java is installed on our machine or no. Okay. So to just check that whether we need to set a Java path, and to check that what I need to say is Java C from anywhere. Just use Java C from anywhere. Yeah. And if you observe some of the options here, so these are nothing but the options. Yes. Java C stands for Java compiler. Okay. So we need to run Java compiler, right. So if I just use Java C, it will give us number of options here. Okay, that means what? A Java is installed on our machine and the path is already set. We are just assuming here the Java path is not set. Assume if the Java path is not set. So how to set a Java path? Why do we need to set a Java path? This is basically because we need to tell Java that this application should be installed on that path. The path is given there, right. On that path we need to, from that path we need to execute, from that path we need to invoke the compiler, from that path we need to invoke the JVM, right. Okay. So let's see how to set a path first. So very first step is to set the path. We are assuming that we are installing Java for first time. So if you have installed Java for first time, there are no environment setups has been done, so nothing has been done. Yes. So to set the path, we'll use set path command equal to, and we'll give a complete JDK path here. So my Java is installed under program files, Java, JDK and bin. You can take any version if you want. So as of now we have JDK 1.6 and I'm just copying path till bin. If you see, I'm copying this path till this bin. Yeah. And why do we need this path? Because my Java is under this path. If you see Java C here, so this CXC we need to invoke to compile our application. Similarly, we have a Java here or a JVM here. To invoke that we need to give this path. Okay. So let's set this path. I'll just copy this path and we can paste it here. Press enter. So path has been set. Now I can execute my application, and to execute first I need to compile my application. For compiling my application, I'll say Java C. Name of the file, what is the name of the file? Is hello world.java. Yeah, if you observe this error, it will say file not found, Java C file not found. So currently it is looking under this folder C users Asif Imnat, but we don't have any hello world.java file under this directory, right? So what I need to do, I need to go inside this directory first, right, because our Java file is under this. Yeah, there are two options, there are two ways actually. One of them is either go into this, either change the directory to the G drive, or we can set the class path as well. For now we'll go into the G drive. Yes, and we know how to change the directory. I'll simply use G : to switch to directory, and I'll say CD. CD stands for change directory Java demo. Now the current path has been changed. We are under Java demo, and under this directory we have a file called as an hello world.java. So let's execute this. Now I can use the same command again. I'll say Java C hello world Java. I'm using tab to autocomplete. Yes, so if you observe this command, the very first command is Java C hello world.java. and if I enter, I'll get a compiled file. It is not giving any error now. And if you observe in this directory, we have one more file, a newly created file, that is a .class file here. Can you see that? So this .class file is very important. So we'll hand over this .class file to everyone. We'll execute this .class file on all of the platforms, right? We don't need to create this .class file again and again. So this is compile once, run many times. So we have compiled our application now. So this can be executed on all of the machines. That's how it is platform independent. Okay. Yes. So once we compile, we'll get a .class file. So we have a .class file. Now we need to hand over this .class file to a JVM. That means I need to invoke JVM. We need to execute JVM, right? So to run this application on JVM, I'll use Java and name of the file, that is hello world. No extensions as such. I'll simply say Java and name of the file. Will not provide any extensions here. So by default, it is looking for a bytecode file or a .class file. If I press enter, if you can see that it has printed hello Java. This means what? We have successfully executed our application. Let me open this with the notepad. Yes. So we have written a program to print hello Java. And if you observe on command line, once I execute this Java followed by hello world, what I'll get is a output, that is hello Java. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it very simple? Yeah, it's very simple. Okay. So this is the one part. So what we have done till now, how we have executed our application. So first thing, what we have seen, whether JDK or a Java is installed on our machine or no. So first download JDK and install it on your machine. So you may get it somewhere on program files, right? Under program files, you'll able to see a Java folder. Under that you will have whatever version you have installed. Okay. So once we are ready with the JDK, once we have a Java installed on our machine, we'll write down our program, store it in some of the drive. So we have written our program and we have stored it under G drive. Yeah. And we'll open the command prompt, and we are assuming that, say, if we have not set up, we have not made any environmental setup. So what we need to do, we need to, very first thing is we need to set the path. So how do we set the path? By saying set path, by using a command called as an set path equal to the complete path, program files, Java, JDK and bin, till a bin. Okay, this is how we'll set a path. The next thing is to compile our application. So I'll use Java C hello world.java, but it will give you error if the file is not present in the same directory, right? In this directory we don't have that file, right? So that's why we have changed the directory. We are inside the same directory where our file is been created. So my file is created under G Java demo. Yeah. So I'll execute it again. So it will not revert anything, and once I compile it, what I'll get is a .class file. This file will be auto generated. This will be created automatically once I use Java C hello world.java, right? After that, I'll simply use Java followed by name of the file, that is hello world. Okay, no extensions. So that will by default look for the .class files. So what I'll get is a output. So my application will run after this. Okay. So this is how we can execute a simple program by a command line. Okay. Now let's try a same thing by using Eclipse IDE. So we'll execute same program on some IDE now. So what we are using here is the Eclipse IDE. Okay. So basically we are using Eclipse Luna version. So we have many Eclipse versions as such. We have Eclipse Indigo, we have Eclipse Galileo, we have Eclipse Juno, we have Eclipse Luna. So it's up to you, but my preference is go for Eclipse Luna because it has many features. It has some of the inbuilt tools. It has many other inbuilt tools as such. Yeah. So what I'm using currently is Eclipse Luna for now. Let me start Eclipse, and Eclipse is an IDE. We call it as an IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, right? Why do we use IDEs? So basically we use IDEs so that we should not waste any of our time on setting up these environments. So if you observe by command line, manually I need to set up the path, manually I need to fire the commands, manually I need to invoke, go into that directory and then run my application. So this manual work will be reduced in case of IDE, because it comes with the inbuilt compiler and inbuilt JVM, along with that the many other tools as well. It can come with the JUnit as well. It can come with the support for J2EE as well. Yeah, you can create anything by using Eclipse IDE. Even you can create the Android applications nowadays. Yeah, so this is nothing but the integrated environment development. So once we start Eclipse, it will ask us for the workspaces here. So what is this workspace? Workspace is just where do you want to store your projects, where do you want to create your applications. So for now I'll just give a new name. I'll create a new path. I'll say Java demos, okay, and which are created under this directory, G Eclipse Juno, all workspaces and Java demos, right? So this is just for where do you want to store your applications, right? So I want to store my applications under this. Just click OK. It will take some time to start. So it is completely your preference. You can go for Eclipse Juno if you want. Yeah. So once we start with this, what we'll get is a welcome screen. So let's close this welcome screen as of now. Yeah, and the default structure of this Eclipse is, on left hand side we'll get a project explorer. So this project explorer is nothing but to switch between the Java files, right? We don't need to manually go into that directory. Okay, we'll understand once we proceed ahead. And in between what we have is a editor. We don't need this notepad now, so we'll get an inbuilt editor here. We have an inbuilt Java doc here. We have an inbuilt console as well, right? So all of the tools you can see from OpenPress, probably by show view. Yeah, so if you go into Windows show view, we have something called as all of these tools you can see, right? These are inbuilt. Yeah, so I don't need to execute my program by the commands. I don't need to execute my program by the command line. Yeah, I can simply click on this play, that will be executed, that will be compiled automatically, and that will be executed automatically, and the output I'll see directly on this console. Okay, so we have integrated everything here. So let's create a first program, the same program here on Eclipse. So to create that, under Project Explorer, I'll just right click on this, or I can go to Files and I can click on New. I can say Java project. We are creating a new Java project, so I'll click on Java project. I'll just give a Java project name. We can give a name called as an hello world. Click on Next. Click on Finish. So if you see in Package Explorer, what we have is our project, and if I explore this, what I'll get is a source, src. So all our Java files reside under this source. Yeah, so everything we need to create under this source. So I'll right click on this, I'll create a Java files. Okay, right click on source and create a class. Okay, and all of the classes should reside under a package. So as of now, just create these packages. We are going to talk about the packages, what is package and why do we need the package for, but everything must reside under a package. Yeah, this is one of the standard again. And how do we specify a package name is something like this. We give a namespace followed by the organization name followed by the type of classes which you are going to store. Say maybe hello Java, yeah, and name of the file, say hello world. Okay. So if you see, the package name is something like this, com.psl.hello java, yeah, that should be in lower cases. Okay. Everything is in the lower cases. I have written name is com.psl.hello java, right? Com is nothing but a namespace, some namespace, followed by the organization name, that is Persistent Systems Limited, followed by a type of classes which we are gonna store. Just provide this as of now. We'll talk about this more. Yeah, we'll see what is package and why do we need to create a package. I'll just click on finish. Okay, so if you observe, under resources, under sources, what I have is a package. Under that, what I have is a class. So if I click on this, I'll get that class here in between in the editor. So this is our editor, right? So let me, if I double click on this, that will be maximized. So let me maximize that. I'll just increase some font size. Let me increase some font size. I'll go to preferences. 14 is enough, I think. Okay. Yes. So if you see some keywords and some part of Java is already provided by Eclipse. Yeah, if you see, the package is already given, the class is already given, the keywords are written in the red color. Yeah, so this becomes very easier to do the development in Eclipse. So I'll write a main again, public static void main. Yes, if you observe, all of the keywords are in red color. So public static void are the keywords and main is a method. So we are writing the same program again here, and I'll use system.out.println, the same thing, to print it on console. Okay, system.out.println. Keep a habit of saving your application all the time. Yeah, you can click on save all here. Yeah, I'm using control S all the time immediately. Okay, so this is by default compiled. If you observe, if I remove this semicolon, simple semicolon, I'll get a red color or an error here or a red balloon here. Can you see that? So it is automatically compiled. So as well as I save my application, it will immediately compile our application. Okay, so once you save it, it will compile your application automatically. We don't need to explicitly fire the command called as in Java C. So that is the benefit of using this Eclipse IDE, right? So if you see, it is giving us some of the suggestions as well. It says the syntax error, please insert the semicolon after this statement. Okay, so we'll get a inbuilt compiler. So I'll put this semicolon, I'll save this again, and once the compile time errors are solved, we can execute our application, right? So either I can do that by clicking on this run button directly, or I can right click on this, right click on editor, run as, we need to run it as Java application. So console will automatically pop up. Yeah, and it will display the output. Can you see? The same output is displayed here. Yeah, so it reduces the manual work a lot, right? So we'll execute here onwards, we'll execute all of our applications on this Eclipse. Okay, this is our first program. This is a very simple program that we have seen. Yes, now after this we'll have a deep dive into Java and we'll see some important topics, important concepts in Java. Yes. Okay guys, So we are done with the basics of Java as such. Now let's understand some basic Java, that is some of the language fundamentals which we need to understand. That is, what do you mean by identifiers, what do you mean by keywords, what do you mean by data type, what do you mean by literals. So this is very important to understand that. Yeah, so we'll be using these maybe the identifiers or maybe the names again and again. So it's necessary to understand what do you mean by identifier, what do you mean by method, what do you mean by variable, and what do you mean by data types as well, and how to use and what are the standards to define that, what are the standards to declare those variables. Yeah, so let's have a look into this. Yeah, so let's start with the identifier. Identifier is nothing but a simple any name which we use for a class, which we use for a variable, and which we use for a method. Yeah, so this is just a simple variable or simple name which we can use for a class, for a variable, and for a method, right? So if you observe, some of the examples are given in that the blue and the red block. So the valid ones are the blue ones, and those red ones are the not valid ones, right? So we cannot use special characters in identifiers as such, right? So we can only use underscore and the dollar. Okay, so we can only use underscore and the dollar sign. And yes, Java is case sensitive, so we need to keep this in our mind that we need to have a case sensitive identifiers as well. Okay, so while creating Java applications, we need to take care of naming conventions as well. So as we already discussed, a class should start with the capitals, right? So class is a keyword, but the name which we provide for the class is should be in a capital letters, that is the first letter, or the word's first letter should be in the capitals, right? So as we have written a hello word, that H is in capitals and W is in capitals, and as far as possible the class name should be the nouns, those should not be the verbs as such, right? Those should not be something like run, walk. Yeah, those should not be verbs, that should be nouns. Okay, same thing applies for the interfaces. We don't know interfaces yet, but the interfaces is same like a class. We'll talk about interfaces later. This is how we can create a class. If you see a class customer, so this is a noun, right? So C is in capitals. Even in case of interfaces, if you see interface shape, S is in capitals. Okay, and same naming conventions stands for these methods, variables, and for the constants as well. So the methods which we write are always end up with the open close rounded brackets, right? So if we have open close rounded brackets, that then we call them as a method, right? And that should be a verb. And if you see the method names which are given in that blue block, that is run, show transaction, get all customers. So these are mainly verbs, right? And observe the naming convention there. Run, everything is in lower case. If you see run, everything is in lower case, open close rounded bracket and semicolon. If you see show transaction, there are two words in this method. So show is in lower case, but the second word's first letter is in capitals, that is S is in lower case and T is in capitals, right? Same thing for get all customer, right? So all's A is capitals and customer C is in capitals. Okay, so this is a standard and the naming convention which we should follow for the methods, right? If you have two words, then the first word should be in lower cases and the second word the first letter should be in the capitals, right? Yeah, and the same rule applies for the variables as well. So how do we declare a variable? By some data type, right? Followed by some data type. So that can be int age, string first name, as you can see in the second blue block, right? So int age, if you see age in lowercase again, and string is a class actually, but that is a variable which we have declared, right? So string first name is again a variable which is declared same like a method. So naming convention is again same like a method. So first F is in lower cases and names N is in upper cases. And if you see the constants are everything is in upper cases. The third blue block, if you observe, int min width right? Everything is specified in upper cases. So the constants should be in upper cases, right? When we can say any variable as a constant, so if its value doesn't change and we are using it again and again, right, we can declare them as a constant. So mainly those are public, static and final. Okay, we'll talk about that more. Yeah, so we're saying keywords many of the time. What do you mean by keyword rather? Yeah, keywords are nothing but the reserved words, right, which already has some of the meaning, and those meaning we should know now, right? So some of the keywords are already present in Java, and we should know the meaning of these keywords, right? So these are the reserved words. So we have many keywords as such. We have boolean, break, byte, do, implement, class, and so on. Many of them we have, right? Okay. So it's better to go for a demo directly. Yeah, so we'll see how to declare a variable. This is how we declare a variable that is a data type, followed by a variable, and followed by if we want to specify any value. Yeah, that is for integers. And for float, if you observe, float variable name is salary is equal to 1000, and it is in floatings, so decimal 00 followed by f letter we are using. So for floats we need to use a f character there at the end. Okay, and character is again declared in a single quote. If you observe, char grade equal to, in single quotes we are using capital A, or any character if you want. Yes, let's understand what do you mean by data types and how many data types we have in Java. We already know the meaning of data types, right? So data types are nothing but, so these are some of the types which are used in programming language to store a variables, right? So that can be integer, so maybe we want to store integer types, right? 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to store the character, if you want to store a string, then we'll go for a char type, right? So we already know the meaning of data types. In case of Java, we call them a primitive data types. So we have total 8 data types in case of Java. If you see, these data types are mainly divided into the two parts, that is boolean type and a numeric type. Boolean type is a boolean, and in case of numeric it is again divided into the two parts, that is integral, which comes in digits, that is 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, it has some range. And the second type is a floating point, right? Floating type means which comes with the decimals, that is 3.14, the value of pi. Yeah, and under integral we have character as well. Yeah, so if you see, under character we have a data type called as an char. Yeah, so the one which you see in the red block are the actual data types which we can use in Java. Okay, and in case of integral type we have 4 types, starting with the smallest one. It is a byte, then short, then int, and then long. Okay, so the shortest one is the byte, then short, int, and then long. If you see in floating, we have 2, that is float and double. Okay, so we have total 8 data types in case of Java, and this is the basic hierarchy of data type. Now let's talk about scoping. Yeah, what do you mean by scoping, and how does it differ from local scope to a global scope? Yes, so yes, so if you see here a class person, right? Inside class person, if you observe that blue box, inside the class person we have 2 variables declared, that is int age and string name, and these are declared directly inside the class, right? So if these are declared directly inside a class, we call them as a class level variables, right, or a global variables. Okay, so remember this, we call such variables as a class variables or a global variables. Yes, and we also call them as an instance variables. Why instance variables? We'll talk about that little later, because the values of those variables change on the instances. Yeah, so these are called as an global variable, class level variables, and the instance variables. Okay, and if you see, if you declare any variable directly inside some scope, inside a method or inside some block, we'll call them as in local variables. So here in for, if you observe, for parameter has int number is equal to 0. So that integer variable number is declared inside a for loop. So its scope is only till that for. Okay, that's why we call it as a local variable, right? And that will not be accessible outside this for loop. Yes. Okay. So let's understand what do you mean by arrays in Java. Yeah, we already know some arrays. Yeah, why do we create an array, and what are the types of arrays as well, right? So basically array are used to store a similar type of data, right? So this is to group the data basically, right? So group the same similar type of data. Okay, so arrays are basically to group a like type variables, right, referred by some common name. Okay, so I'll simply declare a one variable, and inside that variable I'll make it as a I'll declare that variable as an array, and if I declare that variable as an array, I can store number of values inside that, right? If I declare int array, then I can store number of variables inside that, or number of values, number of literals for that that array, right? So this is why do we use arrays, is basically to group related information, right? To group the related information together. So we have basically two types of arrays, that is a single dimension and a multi-dimensional array. We already know how the array works. So index of array starts with a 0. Yes. So if I declare an array of size 4, so it can store 4 values, and the index for first value, it starts with a 0. Okay, so 0 1 2 3 is the index for this the array of size 4. Yes, this is how we can declare an arrays in Java. If you see, int is the data type and marks is the array which we have declared. To declare array, we use open close square brackets, right? And to define a size, to create a size, to create an array of size 10, we allocate a memory to this. So if you observe on second statement, or on under allocation, marks is equal to new int 10. Okay, this is not a rounded bracket, this is a square brackets 10. This is how we can create an array or declare an array. Yeah, and once we need to assign a values or to access the values, so we can use marks followed by the index. Marks of 0 equal to 65, marks of 1 equal to 56. Yes, this is how we can access or initialize the values to this array. Yeah, so that 0 1 2 are the indexes, so you can set any values on specific index as such. Okay, now let's go for a demo again, and we'll be talking about some of the basic concepts whatever we have covered till now. Yeah, that is literals, that is standards, what we need to follow in Java. Yeah, the naming conventions we need to follow, the scope, the global scope, the local scope, the method scope, right? We'll cover it along with the demo as well. Yeah, so let's create a demo to display a date maybe. Yeah, so we'll create a demo to display a date. So I'll come back to Eclipse. I'll open Eclipse again. So our Eclipse is already open. Let me close this. We have already created one project here, that is hello world.java, right? This is hello world project. Let me create one more project, a new project probably. Yes, and in second project we will create this project to display a date. Yeah, today's date maybe. Yes, so I'll say my date. A project name is my date. We are following the same path again, the same way again, that is right click on this project explorer, create a Java project, yeah, and give a project name. Under this my date we have a source. On this source, if you right click, we'll create a class. Okay, and as we already know, that should be inside some packages. So I'll say com.psl dot say date type of classes, or a my date, we are gonna display a date. So I'll say my date type of classes we are gonna store. Class name is my date. Okay, I'll maximize this. As we already know, everything starts with a main, so I'll just put public static void main. Eclipse helps us for the auto completion as well, so I can use control space for the auto completion. Keep a habit of saving your program. Okay, so my date is to display a date. Okay, so to display a date, if you observe, a class name is my date, a class is a keyword, it is in lowercase, it is public, it is in lowercase. So public is access specifier. Basically we'll talk about access specifiers as well. Yeah, so keywords are in red color, are in lower cases. A class name is in capital, the first letter of the class name is in capitals, and after that we have second word, that is D, that is again in capitals. So this is a standard again. A method name is in lower cases. Okay, these standards we need to take care of. Let me declare a variables now. I'll declare int type of variables called as an date, month and year. Yeah, I need 3 variables, and we are calling these variables as an global variables now, because they are declared directly under the class. They are not declared under the main or not of the any of the method, or not even inside any of the constructors. So we have declared them directly inside a class. So I'll call them as an class level variable or a global variable, or we can also call them as an instance variables. Okay, so once you declare these variables, we'll assign a value to this date, month and year. So this demo is basically display a date, right? So to display a date, what we are gonna do is we'll create a methods now. We'll create a 2 methods. One method is to initialize the values to this date, month and year, and second method is to display that value, that is to display the date, month and year value. Okay, so I'll write down the 2 methods. I'll say show, or I'll say initialize date, init date. The first method is init date. Okay, I'll create a private method. We should keep a habit of creating private variables or the private methods as far as possible if they are not accessed outside this class. We'll talk about these. These are called as an access specifiers. Can you see? Private, public, public, these are access specifiers. Okay, as far as possible keep them private. The members of the class, we call these as a members of the class. Okay, this is a variable, this is a method. Okay, so these are the members of the class. So members of the class as far as possible should be private. Yeah, unless and until they are not, if they are not used outside this class, if they are not required outside this class, those should be private. Okay, we'll see in detail what are access specifiers we have and what is their accessibility. We'll talk about that. So for now, let me initialize the values to these variables. The return type is void, that means it doesn't return anything as of now. I'll initialize some values to this, say 7 and year is equal to 2007. If you observe, I am following a tree structure as well. I am keeping a spaces wherever it is required. I am adding a new lines wherever it is required. Okay, so here we have initialized our variables. Yes, let me write down one more method, one more private method to display these values, right? So I'll write a method called as an say display date or a show date. Again I'll create it as a private method, private void and the method name. Okay, and to display these values I'll use system.out.println, right? So I'll use sysout and I'll simply put some string inside this double quote saying that date is, or today's date is, or whatever date is a date, I'm writing the variable names directly, right? Whatever I'm not writing inside double quote it will print the values for it. Okay, and the things which we have in double quotes is a string. Yeah, and if you observe, for concatenation we are using plus sign here, we don't have a comma. Yeah, unlike C and C++, we use comma for concatenating the variables, but we use plus in case of Java to concatenate the variables, right? Date followed by, I want to display a date, something like this, so I'll put a colon in between, space colon space, concatenate followed by month, value of month, concatenate with the plus, space colon space, and year. Okay, so I want to display date in this format. Okay, the things which I want to display as it is, I'll put them inside double quotes. So colon inside double quote, and values directly in between. What I have a plus sign, that is for concatenation. That's it. Now the other important thing is, everything starts with a main, right? We have a class here, yeah, and everything starts with a main. So now important part is to give a call to these methods. We are calling these as a methods, and these are the variables, right? And we together we call them as an members of the class. Okay, so to give a call to the members of the class, what we always need is the object of the class, right? We know about this. So what we need is the object of the class to give a call to the methods, to access the methods, to access the variables, or to access the members of a class. What we need is an object. Remember this. Okay, so to give a call to access the members of the class, we'll create an object of this class. So how do we create an object of this class? Is something like this. In case of Java, is class name, I'll say class name obj of object name is equal to new my date again. Okay, this is how we create an object in case of Java. Okay, class name, variable name, that is object name, equal to new is to allocate memory. Yes, this will allocate a memory in heap. Okay, followed by my date, open close rounded brackets. So this statement is actually creating a object. Okay, so this statement is nothing but object of my date. Why we are creating a object of my date class? So that we can access the members. Yes, so that we can access the members of the class, right? So that we can call the methods of this class. Okay, so basically we want to give a call, we want to execute the methods called as an init date and show date. That's why we have created the object. Yes, once we are ready with the object, we can call them by using a dot operator, by using that variable name obj followed by dot. Yeah, and once I use dot, it will give us some of the suggestions. So what I need to call is a init date. So I'll just write init some initials and it will give us a suggestion. Okay, followed by what I need to call is a show date method. Can you see that? That's it. It's very simple. So we have just created an object of the class, and this is how we have given a call to those methods. Let me execute this. I'll right click on this, I'll say run as Java project. So if you see, date is 7/7/2007. So we have hard coded values here. Okay, for now we have just hard coded the values. Okay, let's quickly proceed ahead. So some of the basic things we have already understood, that method names we write it in this way, that is init is in lower cases and date D is in upper cases. Yeah, same for show date, S is in lower case, D is in capitals. Wherever necessary, try to give a comments, right? So this method is for initializing a date, right? This is for initialize the date. This is for display the date. right? Okay, wherever required, please try to give the comments as far as possible. Always follow a tree structure, always use the formatting. Okay, let's proceed ahead now. We are hard coding values here, right? So rather than hard coding values, rather than initializing variables, what we can use is a constructor. So let's understand what do you mean by constructor in Java. Yeah, what do you mean by constructors? Okay, we already know why do we use a constructors, right? You might have studied in C and C++ that constructors are to initialize the variables, right? So constructors are nothing but the methods. Okay, so constructors are nothing but the methods. So let me point it out. I'll open a notepad. So we are studying about constructors as of now. Okay, so let's understand what is constructor. Yes. So if you observe here, we have initialized values to some of the variables, right? So we have variables called as a date, month and year, and we have initialized the values to that, right? But this is not a good practice, or this is not a good way to initialize the variables, because we are creating a method directly, a complete new method which is not actually required. And our goal here is to initialize the values so that I can use them throughout the class. Okay, so whenever you have some global variables, and the values which you assign to those global variables will be used throughout the class, may be used again and again. Yeah, so in that scenario, try to create a constructor, right? So constructor is nothing but a method. It is to initialize the global variables, nothing else. So why do we create a constructor? So constructor is to initialize the global variables. Okay, so rather than writing this private method, I can create a constructor. So how do we create a constructor? Is something like this. Just observe this. I'm just using class name, and if I want, I can add a access specifier as well. Okay, this is how we can create a constructor. So this is a default constructor. We call this as an default constructor. Okay, so when you can call any method, this looks like a method, right? If you have open close rounded bracket, that means what? It is a method. Yes, and this is a method. But the only difference is we call it as a special type of method. Why? Because if you observe, we don't have a return type, right? You have a return type in case of this init date method. We don't have a return type here in the constructor. Okay, so constructor doesn't have any of the return type. It can have access specifiers. Okay, constructor doesn't return anything. So that's the first point. Second point is, a method name is same as that of the class name. So if you see my date, the constructor name and the class name is same. Okay, then we can call it as a constructor. Okay, so basically there are two things. This is a special type of method. Constructors are nothing but the special type of method. Why we are calling them as in special methods? Because it doesn't have any of the return types. And the second thing is, the name of that method or name of the constructor is same as that of the class name. Okay, yes, and we use this constructor is again to initialize the values. So I'll just copy and paste these values here. Fine, I don't need this method anymore, so I'll comment this out. Okay, I'll just comment this out. You can comment the required code. If you doesn't require this code, you can comment it out. I don't require this code as of now. Okay, so this is a replacement for the commented code. So we are writing a constructor, right, just to avoid creating the hard coded method as such. Okay, so we have a constructor here which actually initializes the variables. But the next question is, how do we call this constructor? How we can give a call to this constructor? So previously, if you have observed, we are giving a call to a method by creating an object, right? So we have created an object and we are giving a call, right? Then how do we give a call to that constructor? So should I say obj.myDate No. So the constructors are actually created automatically, or the call to the constructors is given by default automatically. Okay? So this constructor will get called automatically, as well as I create an object. So on this statement on line number 28, your default constructor will get invoked. Okay, as well as I create an object, a constructor gets invoked. Remember this. Yeah, so I don't need to call it explicitly. See, I am not even writing this statement now, obj.initDate. Yeah, I have commented that because I don't have that method now. Let me run this. This should give us the same output. Isn't it simple? Okay. So we are done with the default constructors, but if you see, we are just using hard-coded values inside these constructors, right? There is a one more way to declare or create an object. Okay, this is the one way. You can create the object in this way as well. I just put a semicolon after this, and obj is equal to something like this. So if you observe, I have just initialized a variable or a reference. We call it as a reference. Okay? This is not an object here. We will not call it as an object. This is just a reference. We call it as an reference. Okay? This is just a reference to my date. Yeah. Unless and until I don't have any object assigned to this, we will call it as a reference. And on line number 28, I will call this an object. It is an actual object. So on line number 28, it is an object, and on line number 26, here it is a reference. Okay, this is the second way to initialize the variable. Yeah, and on this statement, your constructor gets called. Okay. So for now, we are just hard coding the values. Let me initialize these variables, or let me initialize these variables by passing out the parameters. Yeah. So we can have one more type of constructor, that is parameterized constructor. So let's see how to create a parameterized constructor now. Yeah. So to create a parameterized constructor, parameters which we specify in the open close rounded brackets. So I can pass the parameters here, something like this: int dd, int mm, int yy. Okay. So this means what? We are gonna pass the values of date, month and year to this constructor and will initialize them here. Okay. So this dd should be passed to date. So I'll say date equal to dd, I'll say month equal to mm, and year equal to yy. Okay, and we already know that the values will get copied from right to left. So dd value will get copied into date, right? So these values will get copied. Okay. And if you observe it, the compiler has started shouting. It is giving us a warning. It is giving us a error. Yeah. What it says? We don't have any default constructor, right? Constructor is not defined for this. It cannot give a call to constructor because we don't have any default constructor in the same class, right? What we have is a parameterized constructor. Now we have a parameters for the constructor, right? So what I need to do is we need to pass a parameters, a values to this parameter. Okay? So this means what? We are not hard coding the values now. So we may take these values from a user. This is something like we are taking values from user and we are passing it in the parameters. So I can say it, I can pass it something like this. Say I am passing 8/8/2008 as of now. Okay. So we have 3 parameter constructor here, separated by comma. Okay, all are of type int. Yes, that's why I'll pass 3 integers separated by comma. Yeah, let me run this. So date is 8/8/2008. So this is very simple. Yeah, so we have seen 2 types of constructor, that is a default constructor and the second one is parameterized constructor. This is how we can create a parameterized constructor. Okay, let me proceed ahead. Now assume that the variable name here is same as that of the global variable names which we have declared. Okay, okay. So if you see, variable names here are same as that of the variables which we have declared inside the class, that is a global variables, right? Yeah, date, month, and year. Yeah, we don't have dd, so it will definitely give us error. So I need to replace that with a date, month, and year. Okay, because name of this is same, so from this I need to copy it to this, right? Yeah, so this is how I should write. We are initializing the variables. Okay, so will that work? Do you think so? Yeah, if I run this, will I get the output called as an 88-2008? Yes, I'll just remove this. Okay, I'll just delete it so that you can see a complete program on a screen. Yeah, this is my program. So we just have a simple constructor, default the parameterized constructor. We are passing the values, initializing the values here, and printing the values. Okay, will it print 88-2008? I just made a one simple change, that is I have made local variable names as that of the class variable names. Will it work now? This will not work. This will not give you the output which is required, yeah, which we expect. Yeah, it will say 000. Can you see, if I run this, it is saying date is 000. Why so? And this problem is called as an problem of shadowing. Okay, this is nothing but the problem of shadowing. So the global variables are shadowed here. Global variables are shadowed. How? Because what we wanted to do is we wanted to initialize the values or pass the values into these variables, right? But we have initialized only these. The problem is the date on left hand side should be a global date, right? According to the requirement. Where do we want to initialize variables? We want to initialize variables to the global variable, right? But on left hand side what we have are we should have a global variables, right? But in case of Java always give a preference to the local variables. Okay, Java always give the preference or a priority to the local variables. So the date on left hand side and date on right hand side is the local date, and values are not initialized to this date, month, and year, that is to the global variables. Are you getting this? So this date and this date are the same. So if it has found the something on local, yes, which is directly accessible on the local scope, yeah, because the priority is to the local scope first. If it can access the local scope, why it will go for the global? Okay, so that's why the global variables are shadowed. Okay, so now what we need to do on right hand side, these should be the global variables. We want to refer to the global variables, right? So in that scenario what we can use is a this keyword. So let me talk about this now. So this is a keyword. This is a very important keyword in case of Java. So let's understand use of this, yeah, and when should we use this. Okay, so if I talk formally, this is a keyword, and this refers to the current object. This refers to the current object. What does it mean? So whenever I pass any object or whenever I create any object, so here we have created some object, right? As well as I create objects, some internal reference is always passed, that is this, yeah. So every object has a state. Every object has its state. So if I am saying, what do you mean by state, right? On this object I'll always get the output as an 88-2008. Okay, I'll always get a output as an 88-2008. Okay, let me change it to the previous as we made it before, DDMM I mean to say. So I'll keep it as it is, that is DDMM, yeah, and if I run this, we are getting output 88-2008. Okay, just to understand what is a state of an object. Yeah, so on this OBJ we are calling showDate method and the output is 88-2008, right? I am creating one more object now. Let me create one more object. This is just to understand the state of object. Okay, yes, so as you can see, we have two objects now. One is OBJ and second one is OBJ1. Yeah, with OBJ we have some different values assigned, 88-2008, and with OBJ1 we have some different values assigned, that is 99-2009. Yeah, so now if you see, now if I say OBJ1.showDate, I'll just change it to OBJ. Okay, I'm just saying OBJ.showDate. What will be the output, you guess? What is an output? The output is 99-2009. It is not 88-2008 now. Why? Why is it so? If I run this, if you can see that 99-2009, because we are calling showDate method on OBJ1, and with OBJ1 the values which are associated are this. Okay, 99-2009, these are the values associated with the OBJ1. Okay, so this means what? Every object has its state. As I change the object, the values will change. Yes, so with this OBJ I'll always get these values, and with this OBJ I'll always get these values. Fine, and that's why we are saying that every object has its state. Okay, and yes, and that's why if I call a method on OBJ, I'll get those specific values. So the question here is, who remembers these values? Yeah, here we are just calling a method. Here we are just calling a method. So if you are calling a method, who takes care of remembering these values with this OBJ? Who takes these values along with this OBJ? It needs to keep a track of this OBJ with these values, right? It needs to keep a track. It needs to keep the state. Okay, so who keeps the state is a this keyword or a this reference. Okay, so this reference is important, which keeps the state of an object, which remembers the state of an object. Okay, with this OBJ will always get these values, will not get any different values. Okay, so who remembers this? This reference remembers this. If I run this, I'll get two output now. On OBJ1 I'll get 99-2009, and on OBJ I'll get 88-2008. Cool. Okay, let's come back to our demo. That is, I'll change it to the date, month and year again. So we'll have a problem of shadowing here. Okay, so if you have a problem of shadowing, what we get is a default values, that is 0, 0, 0. In case of Java, we have a default as 0 or null. It is not garbage. Okay, this is because of these variables are shadowed, and we are printing the value of these variables in showDate. Fine. So what we want to refer? We want to refer to the global variables. So in that scenario, what I can do is I can use this keyword in front of this, and this says that use the current one, use the current month, use the current year. Okay, this is how I can remove the problem of shadowing and as well as I said this dot, it will refer to the globals, it will refer to the instance variables. Getting it? It will not refer to the local ones, right? So on right hand side these are the locals, from local we are copying it to global. Okay, so this is how we can remove the problem of shadowing. Now if I run this, I'll get the expected output. Okay, so we have seen two things, two uses of this. So this points to the current object. Okay, this points to the current object, and this is for persisting the state of an object. And second use of this is to remove the problem of shadowing. Okay, this is how we can remove the problem of shadowing. Okay, we'll get a problem of shadowing when we have global variable name and local variable name as the same. Okay, let's talk about the third use of this. Third use of this is to do the constructor chaining. Let's understand what do you mean by constructor chaining now. Let me remove this, don't require it. Now assume, I'll just remove the newly created objects as well. Okay, I'll just simplify this. Okay, I have a simple MyDate program now. Let's assume that we have two constructors. We have two constructors in our class. One is the default constructor and one is the parameterized constructor. It is possible to create more than one constructor. We call it as the constructor overloading as well. Okay, so we have overloaded constructor here, and we are initializing a value to one variable in a constructor, in a default constructor, say. Okay, say 10. So value for date is initialized in a default constructor, and value for month and year will initialize in the parameterized only. So I'll delete this. So now I am not initializing value to this date variable in a parameterized constructor. I have initialized it in the default, and for remaining two I have initialized into the parameterized. Okay, what will be the output now? If I run the same demo, what will be the output? So I have a parameterized constructor here 882008 that will be copied here 882008, right, and the values of that month and year will be copied into month and year 8 and 2008. How about this date? It has carried till this, but we have not initialized it to the global variable till. Getting it? Yeah, and are we calling this MyDate, or are we calling this default constructor? We are not calling this default constructor for now. We have explicitly called a parameterized constructor, so it will not give a call to the default constructor. So if I run this, I will get the output as 08/2008 because we have not initialized the date here in the parameterized constructor. Let me run. What I have is 08/2008. Can you see that? This is because we have not initialized our date in a parameterized constructor. We have it in the default constructor, and we are not calling default constructor anywhere. Can you see that? I hope that's clear now. Okay, so our requirement is to, while calling a parameterized constructor, we need to call a default constructor as well. So whenever you want to give a call to a more than one constructor by a single object, on a single object, we want to give a call to the number of constructor, to the different constructor, right? So in that scenario, we use a constructor chaining. So for here, for now, it is giving a call to parameterized, so I'll say this here. So from parameterized constructor, I'll use this as a statement now. We call it as a statement, this statement. Okay, so from here it will jump to default constructor. I'm using open close rounded brackets now. Okay, that's why I'm calling it as a statement. Recently we have used it as a keyword, this dot. Now I'm using it as a statement. Okay, so from this statement it will jump to this. So default constructor will get called, it will execute, and it will come back, and this will get execute. Getting it? let me show you a flow. So it will start from main, object is created, we are calling a parameterized constructor. So it will go to a parameterized constructor, the values will get copied 8/8/2008 into these variables, right? Out of and once it is here, as it hits the this statement, it will jump to default constructor. So value to this date will be initialized, that is 10, not 8. We have hard coding the values, right? The value will become 10 to a date, it will come back, and the values for month and year will be initialized, the values which we have passed. So 8 and 2008 will be initialized to month and year, and we are just printing it. Okay, so it should print 10/8/2008, not 8/8/2008. Getting it? So let me run. Okay, this is how we can do the constructor chaining by using this. We may have a vice versa or a reverse scenario as well. Assume we are calling default constructor first. So if I remove this, this will give a call to a default constructor, right? And if I run this, what I'll get? It should only initialize the value to date. This is not invoked. Yeah, this is unused. So the value to date is only initialized. So that is a date equal to 10, month and year equal to 00. So let me run this. Yes. So our requirement is to give a call to this constructor as well from this constructor now, right? Because it is giving a call to a default now. Can you see? So let's see how to give a call to a parameterized constructor from a default constructor. Okay. So in this scenario, it is giving a call to default. So I'll come to default, and in default I'll use this statement, and I'll pass a parameter. Okay, so maybe I want to pass 9/2009, 9/9/2009, because this is 3 parameterized constructor, right? So I'll pass 3 parameters. Can you see? So it will jump from there here to here, and I cannot use again this, because that will be a recursion, infinite calling. Okay, so from default we have used this as a statement with 3 parameters. I have passed 3 parameters, so values will get initialized here, and it will give a call to this. So the output will be 10/9/2009. Is it? Yes. So let me run this. 10/9/2009. Okay, so this is very simple. So there are 3 uses of this. One is to remove the problem of shadowing, as we have seen. The first one is to, definitely that is for points to the current object, yes, to persist the state of an object. Second is to remove the problem of shadowing. Third is to for the constructor chaining, right? So this is for a constructor chaining, giving a call to the one constructor from the other constructor. There is a one rule about this constructor chaining. So this statement should be the first statement in the constructor. This is a rule. Okay, remember this. Whenever we perform a constructor chaining should be performed on the first statement in the constructor. This should be the first statement in a constructor. So till now we have seen how to create a simple class, how to create a methods, and how to create an object so that we can access the members of the classes, right? So we have seen how to create a variables even, and how to create a methods even, and as far as possible those methods should be the private methods, right? And along with that we have seen how to initialize the variables as well, and we have seen these variables should be initialized in a constructor, right? So we have seen the basic types of the constructors. What is constructor? When should we use the constructor? What are the types of constructors, right? We have seen default constructor as well as we have seen parameterized constructor, yeah. And after that we have seen how to work with this keyword, right? So using this keyword is again very important thing. So this points to the current reference, it is a current pointer, yeah. So this means what? It is helpful, it is useful to persist the state of an object, right? Every object remembers the data which we are passing with this, yeah. So so for this what we need is a this keyword. Along with that, we have seen this is for remove the problem of shadowing. Whenever we have variables, that is a local variables and the global variable names as same, we need to use this keyword to refer to the global variables, right? So this is to remove the problem of shadowing. And lastly, we have seen how to do the constructor chaining. That is, if we have more than one constructor in the same class, how we can call a constructor from a constructor, right? So maybe a parameterized constructor from a default constructor and a vice versa, and default constructor from a parameterized constructor, whatever it can be. So that's what we have seen by using this keyword. So let's proceed ahead, and we'll be talking about one more keyword, that is a static keyword now. Yeah. So let's talk about static keyword. Yes, this is again a very important. Okay, to talk about static keyword, so if I say statics are called, so basically this is again a keyword, right? So if you are saying it is a keyword, so this can be used for a methods, for a variables, and for a class as well. Okay, so I can use static keyword in front of class, I can use in front of variables here, I can use in front of methods as well. Okay, we have only one restriction for the classes, that is the outer class. This class, that is directly the outer class, cannot be a static class. Okay, so I'll keep that part aside, because inner classes, we are not going to cover the inner classes, because inner classes is something which we need to discuss little later. Yeah, so we can have a inner classes, we can have a static class, but that should be the inner class. We cannot create any class as a static directly. Okay, so let's focus on creating a static variable and static method. Okay, so first of all, let's understand the need of this static keyword. And static keyword, if I talk about static keyword, static is a class variable. First of all, the very first important point which we should note is static is a class variable or a class member, right? So the variables which we have created here are instance variables. We are calling them as an instance variables, right? Why we are saying them as an instance variables? Because the values for these variables changes on the instance. Is it so? The values of the global variables or the instance variables changes depending on the object which we are creating. So if I am creating object 1 and we are passing some data along with that, yeah, so that data is associated with this object. Yes, similarly we have created a different object, that is obj1, assume, and we have assigned some different data along with that. So every object has some state, a different values, and that changes because of every time it creates a new variable. Okay, so if one object is there, we'll have a 3 variables allocated in the memory, created in the memory. If you have 2 objects, then we have 2 copies for each object. Are you getting this? So if you have one object, there will be only one date. If you have 2 objects, then there will be 2 date members will be created for that specific object. Getting it? So these are called as an instance variables, because the values of these variables changes depending on the instances. Yeah, and each and every object creates a new variable every time. Yeah, and that will be created at runtime. Fine. But in some of the scenarios, and hence that's why we are calling them as instance variables. So this object is nothing but the instance, right? We can call object as an instance as well. So hence in some of the scenarios, we may need that we don't want to change the values of these variables depending on the instance, right? First of all, static is not a constant, right? Static is not a constant. That means we can change the value of static variable once it is initialized. Okay, it is not final, it is not constant. This is something different. Okay, so static means only one copy. Static means only one copy shared among all the objects. Fine. So in some of the scenarios, we don't want to persist the state of an object. In some of the scenarios, we want all of the objects should be accessed, or all of the objects should access the same or should refer to the same object. In that scenario, we will go for static variable. Okay, let's understand that. Okay, so if you see, static belongs to the class, not to any of the object. That's why we say static variables are called as an, or static members are called as an class members. Fine with this, because they doesn't change the behavior depending on the object. Yes, and as we are saying it is a class variable, so we don't need object here. So that's why statics can be accessed on the class name directly. Without creating an object, I can call the static members. So till now what we have said, in Java to access the members we always need an object. Getting it? So to access the members, I mean to say to access the variable, to call the methods, to call the constructors, we always need an object. Unless and until we don't have object, we cannot call any of the members of the class, right? But in case of static, this is not true. If we have a static members, if we are creating static variables or a static methods, without creating an object, we can even call those members. Yeah, so how do we call that without object? By the class name that we'll see in the demo. Yeah, okay. So basic idea behind static is, static, it has only one copy. Static refers to only one copy. Depending on the object, it will not create a new copy always. Yes, so every object will refer to the same copy, remember this. Okay, so let's see how to create a static variables first of all. For this, let me create a new demo. We'll create a simple employee demo for this. Yeah, along with that we'll also discuss some rules for static. Yeah, how it should be used, where it should be used, and what are things allowed and what is not allowed. That also we need to discuss. So let me create a static demo here. So I'll say static demo. I'm creating again a package. Same thing we are following again. We have created a class, we have created a package, and take care of these Java standards. Click on finish. So here we got a class. I'll just maximize this. I'll write a public static void main. Okay, so let's create this demo. So probably for displaying details of employee. Yeah. Okay, I'll just to understand, I'll rename this class to employee. Okay, so that could be more easier to understand. I need to change the compilation. Yes. So in short, I'm creating a class called as an employee. Yes. So in employee class, what we have is an ID, name and salary. Okay. What we have is an ID, name and salary. But if you observe, so we want to display the details of employee. So if you want to display the details of employee, say minimum requirement is to display ID of employee, name of employee and salary of employee. Yeah, this is the minimum requirement we have got. Okay, so out of this, if you see, name comes along with the object. Yes, so whenever any employee joins the organization, when any employee joins the organization, the name will be given by the object. That means the employee will tell his name, right? And even the salary he may negotiate. So he may get the salary according to that. But the ID is a global variable. If you consider ID, employee ID, that employee ID doesn't come along with the employee. That is assigned by the employer. That means it is by the organization, right? So when I say it is by the organization, by the employer, that means what? This is a global variable that should not change depending on the object, right? And this is auto incremented. Whenever new employee joins, that is incremented. Whenever new employee joins, that is incremented, right? And so in that scenario, that doesn't change depending on the object. So what we need to do, we need to refer to the only one copy of the static, right? Only one copy of that variable, right? So in that scenario, I'll go for a static int or a static employee ID. Okay, so let me show show you the same demo without static first. So I'll create employee ID. Variable names as per as possible should be very specific. I should not write it as an ID directly, we should specify it as an employee ID complete. Then employee name and employee salary. So we have three variables, basic three variables. I'll create a constructor, employee constructor, and what I need to do is, as we are saying, employee ID is assigned by the organization, so that should be incremented, auto incremented to start with a 0, yes, and default value is again a 0. So even if I don't initialize it, that is also fine. So employee ID should be auto incremented, so I'll increment it here in the constructor, but employee name and salary has to be passed from a main. Okay, so yes, sorry for that, the employee name should be of type string, so I'll create it as a string type. Okay, and employee salary is of integer. Okay, this looks fine now. And out of this, employee salary and employee name has to be passed in the parameter, right? So I'll pass them in the parameter. So I'll say int salary, say, and string type employee name. Okay, if you observe, string is in capitals, S is capital, so this means what? It is not a data type. This is a class provided by the Java which behaves like a data type, but it is not a data type. Yes, remember this. So I'll just say name here. Okay, let me initialize these variables now. So I'll say employee ID is equal to employee ID I need to increment automatically, but employee salary I have to initialize. Then employee name is equal to name. This looks fine now. Yeah, so two values are initialized and one is auto incremented, and I need one method to just to display the details of employees. Okay, so I'll write the method called as a display employee. Follow the standards again, as per as possible, try to create the private variables and the private methods. Yeah, and let me put the system.out.println sys out here. So I can say employee is in the double quotes, yeah, and followed by employee ID and details of employee, that is employee ID plus employee name plus employee salary. Okay, so these details we need to display. So let me call these methods, let me initialize the constructor, let me create an object and call these methods. Yeah, so I'll create an object of employee in main. So we already know how to create an object, right? So I'll create 3 objects probably. Yeah, to parameterize constructor I need to pass salary here, say salary is 10,000 and name of employee as say XYZ. Okay, and I'll just give a call to the methods, now members of the class. So the method is display employee. Similarly, let me create 2 more objects, E1, E2 and E3. I'll just make little changes here, that is 20,000 and ABC. Object has to be called on E2 Same way I'll create a one more object. So I have total 3 objects. If you see, I have E1, E2 and E3 now. Okay, I'll make some small changes here. Employee name is say PQR. That's it. So if you observe, I have 3 objects, and on every object we are calling a display employee method. Yes, and in the constructor, every time it will give a call to a constructor. On the object call, it will initialize the values, and it will automatically increment the employee ID. Yeah, so if you consider this, the output should be 1 salary and the employee name, 2 salary and the employee name, 3 30,000 and PQR, right? Yes, that should be the output. But if I run this, if I execute this, can you see that on console employee ID 1 XYZ 10,000, 1 ABC 20,000, 1 PQR 30,000. So that means what? Employee ID is not changed. Employee ID is not changed. So this means what? On every object, it is creating a new employee ID. Every object creates a new employee ID. Getting it? That's why we are calling them as an instance variable, right? So I'll just describe this more. So whenever it comes to this statement, that is in statement number 28, what happens is it will come to a constructor, values will be assigned to this, and 3 variables are created: ID, salary and name, and initialize with a 0, so that is incremented, that will become 1, and whatever values you have passed, that will be assigned to this, and that is displayed, right? Same thing when I come to E2, when the execution comes to E2, on this statement, what happens is again it will initialize the new variable. It will not refer to the same variable which is created for E1. Getting it? So every object create a new variable. That's why we call them as an instance variable. Getting it? So it will not refer to the same variable all the time. It is creating new variable, and again it will be initialized to 0. It is incremented and becomes 1, and then ID and salary and name again. Getting it? That's why we are getting 1 1 1 all the time, because every object is creating new variable, initialized with a 0 and incremented. New variable, initialized with a 0 and incremented. Getting it? But what we want, that every object should refer to a same variable. Now our requirement here is every object should refer to the same variable. It should not create a new variable all the time. It should not reinitialize the variable all the time, right? So whenever you want to refer to the same copy or same variable on different instances, E1, E2 and E3, these are 3 different instances, 3 different objects. On 3 different objects we want to refer only one copy of the variable, that is employee ID. In that scenario, I'll create a static variable. Getting it? So let me declare this. I'll run this. I'll just run this once again so that you can see the output. That output is 1 1 1. Yes, for all the employees, because every time it is reinitialized. Every time it is creating employee ID. Fine. So what I'll do, I'll just make it static. I don't want employee salary as static. I'll just declare it as a simple integer. I should end this with the semicolon, and what I want is a static variable. So I can use a simple static keyword in front of variable, something like this. That looks simple now. Yes, that's it. So once you make it static, what will happen? It will not reinitialize. It will not create a new variable every time. Yeah, let me execute this now. If I execute this, you can observe that employee ID is incremented. Can you see? 1 XYZ 10,000, 2 ABC 20,000, 3 PQR 30,000. Getting it? So this means what? every object is referring to a same copy, a single copy. It is not creating a new copy every time. So that's why whenever you need object independent variable or object independent member, in that scenario we'll go for a static members. Simple as that. Clear? Yes. And we are calling them as class members or a class variables. Statics are class members. So employee ID is a class variable. Employee salary is a global variable or an instance variable. Employee name is a global or an instance. It is not class variables. Okay. So as we are saying class variables, why they are calling it as a class? Because you can call these members on a class name directly. See, if I put it on system.out.println, I am using system.out.println, on class name I can access that variable directly. Can you see? Employee ID is accessible directly. Can you see this? Employee ID. Yeah. So without object, I'm not saying e1.employee ID now. I'm not saying e2.employee ID. I'm not saying e3.employee ID. I'm saying employee, that is a class name dot a static member. So static members can be accessed directly on the class name. That's the benefit we get on a static. Okay? And it will always give you the recent updated value. Getting it? And the current recent updated value is 3. Fine, because only one copy is created. It is not instance dependent. Remember this. Okay? Yes. And the same thing applies for a static for this static methods as well. Okay? So let's talk about the static methods now. If you want to create a static method, I'll just put a static keyword before the return types, something like this. Okay, this is how you can create a static methods. So we may have a question that when we should go for a static methods. Okay, so static methods should be created, again the same thing, when you don't have, when the behavior of the method doesn't change with the object. Getting it? With the object, the behavior of the method doesn't change, right? So the behavior is same on all of the object. Getting it? So maybe some arithmetic operations. Say assume I want to create a calculator application. If I create this calculator application and I'll be having number of methods called as an add method, subtract method, right, divide method and multiply method, right. The meaning of add or a behavior of add will never change, right. Add means always addition of two numbers or maybe number of whatever the numbers we are passing, right. Add means addition. The behavior will not change depending on the instances. Getting it? The subtract, the behavior will not change. So such methods I can create as a static methods. Fine with this? The behavior is not changing depending on the object. Okay? Okay, but if you observe here, as well as I made this method as a static, it has started giving error for employee name and employee salary. Why? So we have one rule in programming language saying that inside static, in a static scope, everything what you can access is a static only. Remember this. Okay? Only statics can be accessed in a static. Okay? So in a static scope, this is a static scope, right? This is a static scope. So inside this, everything should be and everything must be static, right? Out of this employee ID, it is not giving any error for employee ID because employee ID is already a static. Yes, we have declared it as a static. But if you say employee salary and employee name, these are not static, these are non-static, right? So, and hence it is started giving us error. So what I need to do, either I need to make them static, yes, can you see this? So either I need to make them static, or I have to remove the static keyword from this method, right? So now what it says, so the errors are gone now. Now it says that the behavior or display employee behavior of this display employee method is same on all of the methods, on all of the objects. Getting it? It will not change on different objects, that will be always same. Okay, so if I run this, I'm gonna get the same output. Okay, the only difference is, as I made it static, I don't need the object even, I can directly call it on a class name now. Okay, I don't need it, I don't need the object even. Yes, the way we have called these methods, right? But I can directly call it something like this. So static members, I mean to say the methods and the variables, can be directly accessed on the class name. We don't need the object or an instance for accessing the static members. I hope that's clear now. Okay, so if I run, that will give us the default values for now. Yeah, we have not initialized, so I'll get 0, null and 0. That's it. Okay. So let's proceed ahead, and we will be talking about packages and the access modifiers now. Let's talk about the packages. So it's very simple. Package is just a namespace, right? Package is just a namespace. So we'll use this package just to differentiate or classify the classes, right? The same way we create a folders in our directory, right? We create a folder structure called as an say movies folder in our G drive maybe. Yes, why we are creating movies folder? Again, inside movies folder we have subfolders called as an Hindi movies, yes, Bollywood movies, Hollywood movies, and so on, right? So why do we need those folder structure? Just to classify the type, right? Just to differentiate the classes, right? So the same way we may have the thousands of classes in our project, right? We may have thousands of classes in a same project. So if you have thousands of classes in one project, that will be very difficult to locate a specific class at a specific time, right? So just to locate or just to group them according to the functionality, what we'll do, we'll create a package. Package is nothing but we are creating a one folder, and inside that folder we'll just put all of those classes or a similar type, similar functionality, similar behavior type of classes. Getting it? It is just grouping a related types of classes, nothing else. That's it. Fine with that, because we can have a number of classes, so group them and create a package, group them and create a package. Okay, so we have two types of packages, that is an user defined package and the package which are given by Java. As well as we download JDK, we get some of the built-in packages as well. Getting it? So let's understand what are built-in packages we have. So from Java, we have java.lang package, IO, util, AWT, applet, net and SQL. So as well as we download JDK comes with a Java library. So these are the libraries we have already, right? Fine. So we'll always get some of the APIs as well as we download the JDK. So these are inbuilt. So whenever if we use a classes from this package, we need to import those. Okay? We'll be looking at that. We have not used any of the package as of now. Okay? So probably you may say that we have used string class, we have used system class. I'll go back to Eclipse. In Eclipse, if you see, we have used system.out.println, we have used string class, right? We have used string class, we have used system. It is again a class, right? It is coming from somewhere. Who has defined these classes? Who has defined that this statement this statement is to print on a console, right? Someone has defined it, right? So and that is defined in a system class, maybe in this method called as an println method, right? Then from where does this system class is coming or a string class is coming, right? we have not created this class. So these classes are coming from JDK. Okay, so whenever I deal with the classes, or whenever I want to use the classes which are made in some different package, I use a keyword called as an import. Okay, and these classes are present in java.lang package, which is a default package. Okay, followed by star. If I put, that means all the classes I may access from this package. Okay, so I just need to put this statement to call or to access all the classes which are defined inside or kept inside this lang package. Getting it? So we have a string we have a string class, we have a system class, we have a thread class, and so many classes that those are kept inside this lang package. Okay, but even if I don't write this, it works fine. Okay, that is because it is a lang package is a default package. It is already imported by default. We don't need to import this package. Fine. Okay. So now let's create a some package demo. So what I'll do, we already have a myDate class here. We'll just modify this myDate class now. Yeah, we'll use this myDate class which is already created just to deal with the packages. Okay, so before understanding this package, so how do we create a package that we already know, right? We just right click on source and we can create packages as many as we want. We have a package here, right? If I click on package, I need to provide a name of a package here. So I can say com.psl.bo, maybe. BO stands for business logic. So you can create a package structure by the features or by the layers, right? Either we can create by the features or by the functionality. So it's up to you. So I'm just defining it as an BO, that means business object. So this means what? I have all the classes which has the business logic, actual logic. I'll keep it inside this package. Okay. So in myDate, if you see, the business logic is here. This is my business logic, right? So what I'll do, I'll just cut this, I'll just remove this, I'll just create a new class in BO package, say class called as an, say myDate BO maybe. Okay, and inside this class now I'll paste all of my code. Yeah, it will give us some of the error because of the constructor. Yeah, we don't have a constructor, right? Constructor name is different here. So I need to change it to myDate BO. Okay, for now let me remove this default constructor. Let me keep the only one constructor, that is parameterized constructor. Let me initialize that as well. So this dot, I'll say this dot date is equal to date. Yeah. So if you see, a business logic is present in some different class and it is present in some completely a different package. Okay, if I show you the folder structure, as you can see, let me solve this error as well. Let me remove this as of for now. Okay, so if you see, we have two packages, package called as an com.psl.bo and com.psl.mydate. Okay, so this package contains only a controller, that means just a caller, just a main, and it has the actual business logic, right? And this is the best practice which we should follow. Okay, now the important thing here is a business logic is present, or my actual logic is present in some different class and I want to call it in a different class, right? Then how should I use the members of that class, that is myDate BO class, in a myDate class is the question, right? So let me try to access that. So the very important thing, very first thing is, whenever you want to call or access the members of different package, this is a different package, whenever you want to access the members of different package, you need to import that package first. Okay? So first of all, what I'll do, I want to create an object of myDate BO, right? because the members are present, the constructor is present inside this class. So I need to create an object of this class. Okay. So to access the members, I need to import it first. So I'll say import. What package we need to import? com dot psl dot bo. Yeah, and maybe if it contains number of classes, star stands for all. Okay, as of now we just have a one class, so I can just specify a name of that class directly. Fine. So I am gonna use this class. It says I'm gonna use this class inside my date. Okay, my date is present in different package, this present in different package. Yeah, so I'll come back to my date, and now I can create an object of that my date bo class. Obj is equal to new my date bo, and I'll pass a values, say date is maybe 7/7/2007. Okay, and let me call the methods obj dot the method called as an, what is the method name? Let me go back and check, show date. Okay, now here is the problem. Let's say show date. We'll get an error here. We're getting an error. Why? It has allowed to create an object. Yeah, yes. If I comment this, it will not allow that as well, because it doesn't know about my date bo class. Yes, this is present in some other package. So whenever any class, if you are accessing from different package, you need to use import. Okay, and to define where it is present, we need to use package. So we have only two statements which we write outside the class, that is package and import, and package must be the first statement. That's a rule. Okay, package must be the first statement. Okay, and only these are the two statements which we write outside the class. Yes. So if you observe, it is not giving any error for this statement, but it is giving error for this statement. Why? That is because of the access specifiers. If I come back to this class, you can see my date constructor is public. This means it is accessible everywhere. But if you see a show date method and its access specifier is private, this means it is only accessible within this class. Getting it? So let's understand what all access specifiers we have. Okay, so if you see, we have 4 access modifiers in case of Java. If you see, we have 4 access modifiers in Java, right? First one is private. So whenever I declare a private to any member, that will be accessible only within a class. It will not be accessed anywhere, not in the package, not in the inherited classes, not in the different package, not to the word, nowhere, only within a class. Okay. After that, we have something called as a default access modifier. Okay, default access modifier, we don't need to define it. If I don't write any access specifier in front of methods or a variable, that will be a default by default. Okay, so if I don't write any access modifier, that means it is default. Okay, so what is the accessibility that can be accessed in a class, that can be accessed in a package? The restriction what we have is that will not be accessed outside the package. Okay, just remember, private is for class, default is for class, and the package only within a package. Okay, then we have something called as protected. Protected means this comes with it has a relation with the inheritance. Okay, so protected means that can be accessed in a class within a package. So in short, we need protecteds are only for the inherited classes. To the derived classes, we'll talk about this more once we cover inheritance. Yeah, so it is for inheritance. So maybe can be accessed in a package. Yes, definitely it is available inside a class, can be accessed in a same package, can be accessed in the different package as well, provided that should be derived class. Okay, that should be the derived one. Yeah, we will talk about this more once we cover inheritance. Then we have public. Yes, public is accessible everywhere. Okay, class, package, and even outside the package, inside the package, everywhere. I will come back to Eclipse, and that is why the showDate method is private and it is not accessible here. They started shouting and they started giving us error. Okay, so if I remove access specifier, that will be default access modifier, and default is not even accessible outside the package. Getting it? So even that is not allowed, and only one way I have is to make it as public so that it can be accessed outside the package as well. So if I make it public, now it is accessible, it is not giving any error. Okay, and this is how we have solved the problem. Let me run this. Console is down here. Can you see? We got the output. Yeah, this is how we can work with the packages and the access modifiers. So till now we have seen the basics of Java, that is fundamentals of Java, how to work with Java, that is an configuration of Java, installation of Java, and again we have seen some of the demos as well. So we have worked with the constructors, we have worked with this keyword, we have seen static keyword. Let's proceed ahead, and we are going to focus on very important concept in Java, and we'll see how to deploy that concept in Java as well. That is one of the important thing, that is an object oriented programming. So let's start with the object oriented programming. So our basic agenda in object oriented programming is to cover the 4 main pillars of Java, that is abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and the polymorphism. Okay, so the basic objective as we discussed is encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and a polymorphism. Okay, and after that we will see abstract classes and interfaces as well. So first of all, let's focus on abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and the polymorphism as of now. Okay, so to talk about object oriented programming, the very first question which comes in our mind is why object oriented programming, right? So as we already know, we have many different concepts to create an applications. We have assembly language, we have procedural language, and so on, right? And out of that we have object oriented programming language as well. So the question is why object oriented programming language, right? So if you see the recent concept, that is an procedural language, it has some of the disadvantages, right? It has some of the problems, right? And we noted down those problems, and we come up with some of the solutions, and those solutions are nothing but the object oriented programming in short, right? So what is procedural language? As we know, procedural language is a top down approach. Yeah, it didn't support, it doesn't have the security, it didn't supported the inheritance concept. That is, we need to, if we have any of the changes in between, we cannot make the changes directly, right? Directly I mean to say we have to write down our code from the start again. We cannot reuse the code which we have already written. Yes, so that support wasn't there in procedural language. Yeah, again we didn't had any of the access specifiers which we have seen recently, right? So there were no any security, there were no any boundaries as such in procedural language. So we come up with some new idea, and we have some very good concept now, very nice concept, very beautiful concept, that is an object oriented programming. So this is basically to group the cooperating objects, exchange the message, right? So this is basically about grouping. So object oriented programming is basically is to get whatever you have in the real life, convert that into the software domain, right? So what we are trying to do here is we always convert whatever we have in real life, that we convert into the software domain. Yeah, whenever I say employee, so that employee is present in real life, and how do we convert it in software domain is by simply creating a class called as an employee. That's how your object oriented programming is helping us to create applications. Yes, but that support wasn't there in case of, I mean to say, the grouping, this abstraction, this conversion of real life into the software domain, that wasn't there in case of procedural language, right? So real life entity, converting that real life entity into the software domain, that was very difficult by the other languages, I mean to say by the procedural language. Yes, that was very difficult. Now that has become very easy by using object oriented concepts now. Okay, so benefits of object oriented programming are, it helps us to do the real world programming. You can have the reusability of the code, we can reuse the code which we have already written, we get the modularity, we have the resilience, and yes, definitely we have information hiding by using the access modifiers. So let's discuss these pillars one by one. So to talk about encapsulation, let's talk about encapsulation first. So encapsulation is about bounding the data, right? Yes. So encapsulation is basically about binding the data. It is about the boundaries, right? So whenever we have any concept in our mind, say as I'm saying employee, right? How do we bind all of the related data into that? Yeah, we have ID, name and salary, we have some methods inside employee class, then how do I bind it? So for that, what we have done, we have created a class. Okay, so we are binding our data inside a class. We have scope, right? We are binding our data inside those curly braces, inside that scope, right? That means what? We are binding our data into some of the scope inside a class. So that's how your encapsulation is helping us. So that wasn't there in procedural language. Yeah, so encapsulation is basically binding and hiding of a data. Remember this. Yes, encapsulation is all about binding and hiding of a data. And very good example for this encapsulation is probably you may know as well, that is a capsule. Yeah, a medicine, a capsule, right? So why it is a good example, I'll explain this. When I say capsule, say assume this is a transparent capsule, so we may have two types of content inside that, maybe two colors. Yeah, maybe red and yellow color substance which is added in that capsule. Yeah, so two types of content we have inside that capsule. Yeah, so the two different types are bounded together, so we got a binding there, right? So this is object oriented programming. So if I don't use object oriented programming, the same content I'll get in the powdered way. Yeah, that is how we used to consume the medicines. If you remember, how do we used to consume the medicines is maybe in the spoons. We took it in the powdered form, right? So we took it in the powdered form, and we took it in the spoon, and we used to consume it, and we always used to worry about the sore test. Yeah, the bad test. We always used to worry about the security, that is whether it is secured from sun rays, whether it is secure from moisture. We always used to worry about that as well. But once I put it inside a simple capsule, I can combine it. I don't need to worry about quantity, I don't need to worry about quality, I don't need to worry about even a test. Getting it? So a simple capsule is solving all of my problems, right? That's how your encapsulation is helping us, right? So easily you can manage your data, easily you can correlate with the data, you can put the data, you can hide the data inside that. Yes, that becomes very easy by using encapsulation. Fine. So how we are achieving encapsulation is basically by creating the classes, yeah, and adding the methods and the variables inside that, yeah. And even the access modifiers are helping us to achieve the encapsulation, that is the private, public, this default and protected. By using this we are achieving encapsulation. Let's talk about abstraction. What is abstraction? So abstraction is more related to the real life. So abstraction says that observe the real world entities. Yes, so whatever you have real world entities, focus on the required entities, focus on the requirement and ignore the rest. Yes, So it says, abstraction says that identify the key aspects and ignore the rest. So whatever you require, whenever you get the requirement from a client, just focus on that. Don't focus on everything. So when I say employee, it is very generic word, right? So that employee can be a developer, that employee can be a tester, that employee can be a trainer, that employee can be maybe a driver. Yes, that employee can be a news reporter, and that can be anything. So that is very generic word. So we need to focus on the requirement. So if requirement says that employee is a developer, so we need to focus only on the developer employee called as a developer, and accordingly we'll create a class, and accordingly we'll create a methods inside that. Yeah. So abstraction says that just focus on the required part, just focus on the just identify the key aspects and ignore the other things. That's what the abstraction stands for. Let me give you the example again. But this is not about hiding. This is not about hiding. Encapsulation is about hiding. Abstraction is not about hiding. Okay. This is about ignoring the unrequired or the things which are not required. Okay. So when I say abstraction, so let me give you some example. Say person. Again we are saying person. So when I say person, if somebody approach that person for say general survey, so whenever we approach some person for a general survey, the possible questions can be what is your name, where do you stay, what is your address, what's your age, yeah, how many members you are in a family. Yes, this is some of the questions which we may ask for an employee, right? And when I say again, now say we are approaching that employee for say medical survey, so the questions will change now. For a same person, I am saying for a medical survey now, right? So for a medical survey the questions will change. Your name, any diseases you have, what is your medical report, what is your weight, what is your height. The questions are changing, right? We are just focused on the required things here, right? We need a medical survey, so medical, depending on that we are changing the questions, right? If I approach that person say for educational survey now, so the requirement is changed, a same person but for a education survey. So for the educational survey again the questions will change now. So I may say that we may ask him a question saying that what is your highest education, right? What are other certifications you have done, right? Any experiences you have. Yes. So the questions will change depending on the requirement. So we are just focusing on the given requirement at that point, and ignoring the rest is nothing but the abstraction. I hope that's clear. And again, how we are achieving this abstraction is by creating a classes and the methods. Okay. Inheritance. So what does this inheritance stands for? So most of us, we already know inheritance is about deriving a new thing, deriving a new entity from an existing entity, right? And along with that we need to acquire the properties of existing entity. That's an important thing, right? So inheritance is all about deriving a new class, deriving a new entity from an existing entity by acquiring the properties of the base entity. This is the formal definition what the inheritance is. So this is about just deriving a new thing, right? So we spoke about the reusability recently, right? So there was a problem with the reusing a code in case of procedural language, right? So once we write down the code, we cannot use it again and again, yeah, in case of inheritance. But in case of object oriented programming, that is inheritance, what we can do, we can reuse the code, we can derive a new class. That's possible, which wasn't possible, which is not possible in case of procedural language. Getting this? Okay. So because of this inheritance, we are getting two important things, right? What we are getting is reusability and the extensibility. That means the code which we have written maybe 1 year before, that I can reuse again, yeah. And along with that we have come up with a new idea or a new feature. So by using that I can extend my feature. That stands for the extensibility. Let's take an example. Say we got a requirement for say the requirement, say we got a requirement for this ATM machine. Okay, so when I say ATM machine, whenever you want to create a software for this ATM machine, we got a requirement saying that it should ask for the enter the PIN number, enter the amount, and withdraw a money, right? That's the basic idea for this ATM machine. Yeah, so we have created that application and we have deployed that successfully, and we have handed over that to the client. But after 1 year, yeah, that client has approached us again saying that I want to just extend, I want to add the new feature into this. Yeah, so we may say that you should have told us before. I cannot reuse this if I am not using object oriented programming, right? So what we'll do, what feature he wants to add? Maybe he wants to withdraw the money by ATM machine, by maybe the ATM card as well, by the debit card, by the credit card as well now. Yeah, so he wants to withdraw a money by the credit card as well. So credit card functionality should also support to that ATM machine, right? So we have added this feature. This is a new feature which has come in the future, and so we'll say that it is not possible now if we are using procedural language, right? Otherwise we need to write it down again from a scratch. Yes, so in that scenario what we can do is we can go for object oriented programming, and out of that we can use inheritance. So inheritance support reusability as well as the extensibility, right? So in the diagram, as you can see, we have employee class, it is a base most class. Out of that, manager, secretary and programmer, these are derived classes, derived employees, right? And why do we need to put this employee as a base class? Because we have some of the generic methods inside that, a common methods or a common functionalities, maybe, yes, common members which we are using again and again. So rather than rewriting them, rather than creating them, what we'll do, we'll put it at a base and we'll reuse them. Yes. So we have mainly two types of inheritance, that is single inheritance, multiple inheritance, right? Other than that, you can say we have multi-level inheritance, yes, and hybrid inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, and so on. Yeah, but in case of Java, multiple inheritance is not possible. Okay, single inheritance is nothing but a one class is derived from the one more class or a second class, right? So only deriving one class from a other class is nothing but a single inheritance. Multiple inheritance is two base classes and one derived class, right? One child class is derived from two different parent classes. So that is what a multiple inheritance is. And this multiple inheritance is not supported in Java. Okay. So because we may get an ambiguity problem here, the way we used to get in C++. So that's why this feature has been removed from Java. But we can achieve multiple inheritance, and how? That is by interfaces. We'll talk about that little later. Okay? This is just to achieve, but it is not an actual multiple inheritance. Okay. Okay, let's understand what is polymorphism now. So polymorphism it is mainly a Latin word, says poly means many and morph means forms, right? So polymorphs, that means what? Many forms, right? So polymorphism means one thing, one entity which has the different behaviors, right? So assume the scenario again. Say we are saying assume the vehicle example here now. Yeah, say we have a vehicle hierarchy. Yes, vehicle is a base most class. Yes, and out of that we have four-wheeler and two-wheeler. These are the two derived classes. Okay, just imagine this, a four-wheeler and a two-wheeler derived classes from a vehicle class, right? So I need to write at least one method called as a move method. Move method, right? I'll write a move method in vehicle class, I'll write a move method in this four-wheeler class, and move method in the two-wheeler class. Yes. So when I can say any object as a vehicle when it moves, So at least it should contain a move method. So I'll have move method in all of these classes. Okay. Now the problem is, will I have or will I write the same code in move which I have written in a move for vehicle class? Is that so? No, right? So in vehicle class I have a move method. In a vehicle class, if I have a move method and inside that I have some code, I have some statements, and same move method I will not use for four-wheeler and two-wheeler, right? Because the behavior may change. For four-wheeler the move is something different, for two-wheeler the move is something different, but it will move, right? So maybe if for four-wheeler it is more faster, the more acceleration we have, more bhp horsepower we have, right? But in case of two-wheeler, maybe the horsepower will be little lesser, the acceleration may be little less, right? Or the variables which I need may be different, right? But it will move. The behavior is different in different scenarios. Getting it? But I am using the same name called as a move, right? So whenever we use the same name again and again, but we are changing its behavior, we'll call it as an polymorphism. Simple? Okay. And how do we achieve polymorphism? Is by two ways, that is compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism, and we also call it as an method overloading and method overriding. Okay, technically if I speak, this is overloading and overriding, right? So this can be also called as an compile time polymorphism or overloading or static polymorphism or early binding. We also call it as an early binding. Okay. And runtime polymorphism is also called as an overriding or the late binding or a runtime polymorphism. Okay. Now let's see some of the demos to achieve all of these object oriented programming concepts into our demos. Yeah. So we'll start with the inheritance. We have seen abstraction and encapsulation already. This is nothing but about creating good design. This is always about creating a nice class or putting up all the data together. Yes, that is about abstraction and encapsulation. Let's focus on inheritance and polymorphism now. Yeah. So let's create some demos for this. I'll come back to Eclipse now. Okay, we'll create a new Java project. Yes, I'll say inheritance demo. Explore this. Inside source, I'll create a new class. Don't forget to create a package as well. So I'll create a package com.psl.say EMP type of classes we are going to create. Yes, I'll create a class called as a client class. Yes, most of the time a client or a controller or a base controller class contains a main. So I have a public static void main in this class. Okay, I just put a main inside this. Okay, and we call them as an client classes. Client means a caller, right? From main we give a call to the different methods. Okay, I'll keep it as it is. I'll create some more classes. I'll create a class called as and say employee now. Okay, and this employee class is a basemost class now. So we have ID, as we have already created this employee class, the same thing we are doing here. So employee ID, employee name, and employee salary. Employee name should be of type string. So just cut this. I'll create a string variable. Okay. Yes. So for now I'll just hard code the values. So say employee ID is 101, employee salary is say 9,000, so that is 90,000, that's fine. Employee name is say PQR. Okay, and let me create some method to display these values now, right? So I'll create a method called as an display employee. I don't want to make them private, I'll keep them public as of now, or a default as of now, and I'll use system.out.println to display the details of the employees. Okay, employee ID, employee name, and employee salary. Fine. Okay, now we have one more derived class from employees, say developer class. Okay, so out of that let me create a one more class, developer class, and we'll see how we can achieve inheritance here. Okay, so these are some of the generic members we have written inside this, right? These are very generic members. Displaying employees are very generic, it is very common. ID, name and salary will be, it is very common, right? That is, this is applicable for all type of employees. Now assume in future we got a requirement for a developer, so let me create a developer class, and inheritance helps us to add the new functionalities, right? So I will create a developer class. Okay, and as developer is again a employee, so rather than creating those variables again, what I'll do, I'll extend that class. So the keyword which I use is called as an extends to achieve inheritance in case of Java. Remember this, just focus on this. So to use inheritance in Java, we use a extends keyword, right? So I'll say extends employee. Fine. So developer extends employee. This means what? Employee is a base class, developer is a derived class. Employee is a parent class, developer is a child class. Okay, this is a super, employee is a super class, this is a subclass. Fine. Okay, so what benefit I'll get if I say extends employee? That is, I don't need to rewrite these variables or the members which I am writing here. These will be automatically present in the developer class. We are acquiring the properties of the base class by default, right? So let's check that. Say in developer, if it is a developer, the developer will have specific features. So developer may have he may get a PF additionally. Yes, he may get a traveling allowance, PF and TA, right? Let's put only these two variables as of now, and I'll write down the method again, say display developer, to display the details of the developer. Let me remove this private. Okay, and yes, let me print the details of developer. I can, if you observe now, I can use employee ID variable here. Can you check this? In a developer class, I can print employee ID, which is not even declared inside this class. Then from where it is coming? Yes, this is possible because of inheritance. So this is coming from a base class, that is from an employee class. Getting it? Okay, so inside employee class we have a employee ID and we are accessing it in the derived class, that is in the developer class. Can you see that? Yes, this way we can access the members of the base class in a derived class. Okay, so this is nothing but the reusability. We are reusing the same code, we are reusing the same members. Fine. Let me hard code the values for this PF and TA again. say PF as 5,000 and traveling allowance as in say 10,000. Okay, so the actual salary will be different for this developer. So I'll say net salary is equal to the salary which is given for employee, say employee salary which is already declared, plus PF plus TA. So this is what is the net salary or actual salary for the developer, right? Let me print all the details now. I can use employee name here and net salary and the net salary variable here. Okay, so if you observe, we are using employee ID and employee name again and again, right, which is not declared in the developer class. I hope that's clear. Okay, so these are coming from the base class. So this is about reusability, and how we are achieving it by inheriting the employee class, by extending the employee class. Fine. Okay, so let me go back to a client. Okay, and this caller or a main or a client class as far as possible should be different, completely different from the base and the derived class. Okay, chalo. So let me create an object of employee class. So if I create an object of employee class, unless and until I don't have object, I cannot call the members, I cannot access the methods of the class, right? So if I say e employee dot, I can call the methods called as a display employee. Okay. Similarly, if I say developer D is equal to new developer, this is how I can create an object of developer class, and on this D I can call the members of the developer as well as I can call the members of the employee. Can you see? On object of developer, we are calling the members or methods which are present in developer as well as the members which are present in the employee. Okay. So display developer is there in the developer class, it is there, right? So by default it is possible to call that method, right? But if you see display employee method is not present in developer actually, it is not there, right? But we are extending employee class, right? So because of inheritance, we can access all the members of the base class as well. So display employee method is also possible to call from this developer class object. Getting it? Let me run. So once I execute, we'll get the output, right? Okay. So is that needed now? Do I need to create an object of base class? It is not needed. If I have the object of derived class, I don't need to create an object of base class, right? Because on object of derived classes or a child classes, I can access all the members of base class, right? So it is not needed. If we don't need to create an object of base class, right? Specific object of the base classes or an employee class. So because we can access everything on the object of child class. Okay, if I run this again, can you see a display developer is printing a details. Say in employee, if you check 101 PQR and 1,50,000 it's saying. So if you see, the basic salary is 90,000 and in developer we have changed it. So his net salary will become PF and adding PF and TA. So that comes up to be at 10,500, right? So 1,50,000, yes. Okay, and the same way we are calling a display employee method. So we are calling it on the object of developer and the method is from employee. So you can call employee methods directly on the object of derived classes. Okay, so this is how we are reusing. Let's proceed ahead and we'll be talking about super keyword now. Okay, and this is again a very important thing This is again a very important concept here. Okay. So I'll come back to employee class, and we are hard coding the values here. Let's not do that. Yeah, as we already know, we should have a constructor as far as possible, and that constructor, we should initialize all the variables inside the constructor, right? So let me create a constructor inside this class. Yes, say ID of type integer, name is of type string, and salary is of type integer again. Okay, we'll initialize inside the constructor. So I'll say employee ID equal to ID, employee name is equal to name, and employee salary is equal to salary. Okay. Can you see that? Yes, we have just created a constructor, parameterized constructor, to initialize these variables. We don't want to hard code the values. We can keep them as it is, no worries. So let me remove that as of now. Okay, so we'll initialize them from a main. We'll pass the values from a main. But we have just made the change only in the employee class, that is a base class. As you can see, a developer class has started giving us some error, started giving us some warning, right? It has started shouting. So if you see, developer class says, please add a constructor in me as well. Getting it? So this means what? Whatever you have in a base class, that should be there in the derived class, right? So constructor is related to the design. So it says that whenever you have a constructor in the base class, that should be there in the derived class as well. So we have 3 parameterized constructor in the base class, in an employee class, then we should have at least a 3 parameterized constructor in a developer class. 3 parameterized or 3 plus. Okay. So it is a rule which says that if you have a constructor in the base class, we should have a constructor in the derived class as well. A same parameterized or a parameter or a plus, whatever it can be. So that can be 3 parameterized or more than 3. Getting it? Okay, I need to follow the standards. It should be at the start. Okay, so I have to add a constructor in a developer class as well. So I have added. So we always get some suggestions. If I click on that suggestion, it will automatically put the constructor. It will automatically solve that error. Okay. Additionally, if you can observe a super keyword here, right? It says super ID, name and salary. Yes, what does it mean? So this means what? Whenever we create an object of developer, we pass. So one thing we have already discussed. What we have already discussed, we don't need an object of base class. है ना? We don't need an object of this employee class, because we can access, as we can access everything on the object of derived class. Why do we need an object of the base class, right? And the new features are always in the new classes. So we'll always go for a new features, right? For the new classes, new derived classes. So we'll always create an instance of the new classes. If I create an instance of the new class, I can get the new features as well as I can get the features which are already made, or the old features as well. Getting it? So if I create an object of developer, I can access the methods of developer as well as the employee. That's what we have discussed. Yes. And hence we are using a super keyword here. So it says that if you have a constructor here, yeah, if you have a constructor here and here in the employee class, and we are not going to create an object of employee class, then who is responsible to call this constructor? Okay? So this super statement here is responsible to give a call to the constructor of the employee class. Just pay attention, remember this. So super is to give a call to the super class constructor. Getting it? Super, we are talking about super statement. Super statement is to give a call to the base class constructor. Getting this? So super is same like this. If you see, super is same like this. This refers to the same class, है ना? This refers to the same class. This says that current pointer. This says that same class constructor. Yes. Super says that a base class constructor. Getting it? Super says a base class constructor, a base class reference. Fine. So we'll use super keyword to give a call to the base class constructor. Getting this? Because we always create an instance of the derived classes. Fine. So this super is very important here. Super refers to employee. Fine. Okay. Additionally, I have a PF and TA which we have hard coded here. So I don't need to hard code these now. Let me initialize them in parameters. So as we discussed, we can have 3 parameterized or 3 plus parameterized constructor in the derived class. PF and TA. Yeah, and only these 3 things or these 3 variables, the values for these 3 variables, I need to pass it to a super. So this will be called, this will be passed to the employee class. Yes, and in developer PF and TA I will initialize. So what I'll do, I'll say this dot PF. Why I'll say this dot PF? Because we have a shadowing problem here. See, name of this global and name of this local variable is same. So I'll use this. Okay, same for this dot TA. Okay. So what we have done, what we have used here, so we have a 5 parameterized constructor. Out of that 2 parameters are initialized here itself and 3 parameters are passed to a base class constructor. Getting it? We have passed it here and they will be initialized in this constructor. Okay. And here onwards we can give a call to the methods as we are calling. So let's go to client class and we'll create an object and we'll give a call. So it has started giving error because we don't have any default constructor in the developer class. We have a parameterized constructor. So let me pass the 5 parameters in the developer, right? Because we have 5 parameterized constructor, right? ID, name and salary, PFTA. So in client I need to pass ID, say 107. So let's say 107. Name is in strings, salary is in integers, PF is in integers and traveling allowance is in again integers. Okay. So I have passed 5 values. So what happens? Let's understand the flow. So from this statement it will jump on the constructor of the developer class. Yes. So I'll go to developer class. So values will get copied here. Yeah. And out of that 3 values will be passed to super. Super means to the employee class, right? So ID, name and salary will be passed to the employee class constructor and PF and TA will be initialized here. Okay. So it will give a call to the super class. So it will go to employee first and the values will be initialized here, passed here, and it will initialize values here, ID, name and salary. Getting it? It will come back and then it will initialize the values to this constructor, that is PF and TA. Okay. This is what happens. So in case of super, a constructor execution is from super to sub. So first base class constructor gets invoked and get executed. Okay. So first this constructor gets executed and then this constructor gets executed. Okay. So super statement is again for constructor chaining, but in case of inheritance, remember this. Super is in case of inheritance and this is super refers to the base class, super refers to the super class. Okay. Yes, let's proceed. So once the constructor calling is been done, then we'll proceed ahead. we are giving a call to display developer method. Inside developer we have a display developer method, yes, and we have a display employee method here as well which is present in the employee class. Okay, that's the same thing. Let me run. So do we have the values which we are passing? Are we getting the output on the past values? So that is 107 ABCD. So 50 plus 5 plus 2, that is 57. Yes, so that's a salary for developer and that's a salary for employee. Yeah, details of employee. That's how we are achieving the inheritance concept. I hope you all understood the concept of super now. Okay, just remember that super and this are almost same. This refers to same class, super refers to base class. Super is for the base class constructors. Okay, yes, let's proceed ahead and we'll talk about polymorphism as well. Okay, so if you see, I have a display employee method and in developer I have display developer method, but both the methods are doing or behaving a same way. This is to display the details and this is again to display the details, right? Then whenever you feel that the behavior of, that means the behavior of the methods are same, the only the implementation changes, right? The behavior of the methods are same and the implementation changes. In those scenarios we can go for polymorphism or overriding. Getting it? So rather than writing the different methods, rather than writing these methods again and again, what I can say is I will write down this display employee method again here. Okay, so if you see, if I use display some initials and control space, it will give us a suggestion. Yeah, if I click on this, it will say overrided method. So this stands for polymorphism and this is runtime polymorphism. This is overriding. Okay, we can remove this, it is not needed. So why we are saying it is overriding or a runtime polymorphism is because in employee class I have a method called as an display employee. Do we have? Yes, and the same method name we have in the derived class, that is in the developer class. Yes, so remember this, whenever we have a same method name, same return type, same signature in the base class as well as in the derived class, we call it as a overriding. Getting it? Overriding stands for same method name in two different classes or in the inheritance, right? And that is nothing but the polymorphism. Okay, so rather than writing a different method, complete new method, what I should write, what I should do, I should modify the method. So that's what we are doing. We already have this method, display employee method, है ना? It is for displaying the details of employee, right? So rather than creating a complete new method, that is display developer, I am rewriting that method, nothing else. So whenever you rewrite a method, that stands for polymorphism, right? So rather than creating new method, I'll just cut and paste this code inside this method. So now it is not needed. This means what? We don't need a complete new method now. We made it more better. Display employee is a new feature, yes, or a improved version of the previous display employee, right? We have display employee in the employee class and display employee in the developer class as well. But display employee in the developer is more improved, right? A new feature. This behavior is which we have added in the developer class. Getting it? And we call it as an method overloading, we call it as a method overriding or a runtime polymorphism. Why we are saying so? So whenever you have a same method name in the derived class and same signature, a return type is same, and whatever signature we have, the parameters, ठीक है. Even we look for the parameters. If we have any parameters for the methods, those should be same. Everything should be same. Getting it? Whenever we have a same method name, same return type, same signature in the derived as well as in the base class, we call it as a method overriding or a runtime polymorphism. Remember this. So this is polymorphism, rewriting a method. Getting it? Rather than creating a complete new method, we are rewriting the existing method. So from client, I don't need so see, it is started giving us error now because we don't have this method now. We have removed this method. So I'll comment this. We just have a one method, that is display employee method now. Clear? And if I run, definitely it will give a call to the derived one. Okay, so can you see that a display employee method is present in employee class as well as it is present in developer class. Okay, but in case of polymorphism, whenever you have same method name in the inheritance in the two different classes, that stands for polymorphism, and calling always goes to the overridden method, the new method. Okay, so this is overridden method, this is a new method, this is a new feature added in developer class. So the call always goes to the new method, to the newly added feature, right? So as we are creating an object of developer, so definitely it will give a call to the developer class. Okay, this is what polymorphism. Okay, this is runtime polymorphism. I hope that's clear for everyone now. And that's very simple. This is how we can achieve inheritance and polymorphism in our Java. Okay, I hope that's pretty much clear for you guys. Yes? Okay. So this comes to an end of this object oriented programming concept, and in the continuation with this, we will look into the interfaces and abstract classes as well.